Chapter 12:12. This was indeed a solution. If he couldn't do it alone, he would naturally have to cooperate with the other feudal vassals. Was there a more suitable partner than Xia? It sounded perfect, as if everyone was happy at this point. However, some people were already shaking their heads in despair. Wang Sheng didn't say much, but who couldn't tell from the situation in front of them? Even in their dreams, Xia wanted to recover these 4 cities. However, the problem was, apart from Xia, which other vassal states would be willing to let Xia take these 4 cities back? If they were really so united and friendly, why were there so many open and covert attacks in Xia? Why were there so many bounties against Xia in Carefree City and Godly Might Prison? Today, a Carefree City assassin dared to cooperate with Xia. Tomorrow, his head would probably be cut off by experts from other vassal states and hung under the eaves to dry. How could a small assassin from Carefree City dare to intervene in the open and covert battles between the various vassal states? All in all, there was only one meaning. Even if someone or a small group of people were lucky enough to complete the mission of assassinating Wang Sheng, what awaited them would be a nightmare. The pursuit of the emperor's royal family, the pursuit of the various feudal vassals, the pursuit of the Xia family, the pursuit of the other feudal vassals, the pursuit of the Liz Hen Fong, the pursuit of the Laojun Temple, the pursuit of the entire Carefree City and Godly Might Prison for the bounty, and even the assassination of any person he saw. These were the consequences that could be inferred. If he didn't die and reached Ningyu City, he would have to face the test of whether Zhu Xiaodong would keep his promise and the attacks of thousands of barbarian experts who had no reputation at all. If that was the end result, then what was the purpose of him putting in so much effort to kill Wang Sheng? Was it to enjoy the process of being hunted? At that time, the assassin wouldn't even have to think about collecting the bounty. He would just flee to Carefree City. He would have to flee from the capital all the way to the inner city of Carefree City to be barely safe. The consequence was that he would never be able to leave the inner city of Carefree City. Otherwise, even if he was in the outer city, he would still be cut into pieces. Don't forget that the Shanyu Kingdom has many enemies. Almost every vassal state is an enemy of the Shanyue Kingdom. A few of them, such as the Xia Kingdom, the Qiu Kingdom, and the Tang Kingdom, are mortal enemies of the Shanyue Kingdom. Wang Sheng smiled and added, "If you accept the resources of Shanyue Kingdom safely, then you have to accept the grievances of Shanyue Kingdom at the same time. Do you want to play the game of becoming enemies with all the vassal states?" The young man's head was already shaking like a rattle drum. Only a fool would want to play this kind of game where one could die faster. All right. Wang Sheng seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He patted his head and said to everyone, "I forgot that all of this is built on the premise that you can kill me, right?" The last sentence was directed at the young man in front of him. Other than nodding his head, what else could the young man say? What else could he do? Drink. Wang Sheng knocked on the table again, and the young man hurriedly refilled Wang Sheng's cup. However, he didn't dare to drink with Wang Sheng anymore. Wang Sheng didn't rush him. He raised his cup and drank another cup. "If I were in my residence, I'm afraid you wouldn't have a good chance." Wang Sheng seemed to have turned into a killer and was plotting for the people present to kill him. He said with confidence and assurance, "With thousands of experts guarding inside and outside, no matter how powerful you are, I would have already run away when I heard the commotion. There's no good chance, right?" The group of people nodded their heads. After nodding their heads, they realized that they seemed to have exposed their thoughts. What was more frightening was that their thoughts seemed to have been guided by Wang Sheng. You. Wang Sheng pointed at 5 or 6 people in the building and said to them, "Your cultivation is not bad. You might be able to kill me in a one-on-one fight. However, you have forgotten that Ancestor Ling Su has always been with me." After Wang Sheng finished speaking, he pointed at the old Taoist again, completely ignoring the experts whose faces had changed drastically, and said to himself, "But before you make a move, you should always look at your belt and collar. Once you make a move, what would happen if your pants burst?" Everyone was taken aback. Those who were pointed at by Wang Sheng hurriedly lowered their heads. One of them hurriedly stood up, but before he could do anything else, everyone heard a soft snapping sound. When they turned to look again, the expert's hands were already gripping the waistband of his protective suit. His bell had unexpectedly snapped in two. The others didn't stand up, but their faces were all ugly. There was no other reason than that there was a neat cut on everyone's collar. No one knew when it was cut and what kind of weapon was used to cut it. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist walked in for a while. It seemed that they had passed by their seats, but that was all. No one saw the two of them make a move. What was even more terrifying was that the position of the cut on the collar made people feel fear in their bones. If it was a little deeper, their necks would have been cut open, but they didn't feel it at all. By the way, the one across the street. Wang Sheng waved in a certain direction outside the window and said with a smile, "You'd better check that poison needle launcher before you fire it. See how many sections of a needle inside it are broken into?" The opposite was also a restaurant. At the seat by the window, a person's face changed drastically. He lowered his head and didn't know what to check. When he raised his head again, he was already sweating profusely. "The rest of you are not as good as me for the time being, so you may not be my opponent in a face-to-face fight." Wang Xing didn't care about the guy opposite him and just said to the rest of the people, "If you really want to kill me, I'm afraid you can only think of some other tricks. Don't move the fine hair poison needle under your feet. It doesn't matter if I step on it, but if someone else steps on it, won't it kill you?" Wang Sheng turned to the person on his right and smiled. Then he smiled at the person across from him and said, "Don't touch the golden crimson snake in your arms. Its two big teeth are scratching the itch on your chest." The two people who were mentioned by Wang Sheng looked as if they had entered hell at that moment. Fear, shock, and disbelief were written all over their faces. They didn't dare to move their bodies easily, for fear of causing a misunderstanding with Wang Sheng. "It's good to be alive." Wang Xing didn't know who he was talking to. He stood up as he spoke and smiled at the young man opposite him. "I'm going back to the residence. Thank you for the wine. No need to be polite." The young man's business began to tremble. "Next time when you add the iris scorpion venom, remember to add more." Wang Xing waved his hand at the young man as a farewell. "It's just a little bit. It doesn't even numb your tongue, and it's already ineffective. Bad review." Chapter 12:13. The young man pretended to be stupid and talked to Wang Sheng for such a long time. Some of them were even stupid questions that were not necessary to be asked. He let Wang Sheng answer for him one by one. Wasn't it to delay time and wait for the poisonous wine mixed with the venom of the iris scorpion to take effect when Wang Sheng came in? Every time Wang Sheng asked him to pour the wine, the young man would be secretly delighted. Every time Wang Sheng drank a cup, the poison would deepen. With so many people watching, no one could take away the reputation of killing Chongqing Duke. However, after such a long time, not only did Wang Sheng not show any signs of being poisoned, but he also spoke with confidence and composure, pointing out the people who wanted to kill him one by one. These people knew about the news from Shanyu Estate, so they came here to think of a way. They were also lucky to see Wang Sheng go out of the mansion, so they prepared on the way back. Unexpectedly, before they could make a move, Wang Sheng came upstairs and analyzed the terrible consequences of making a move one by one. He even told him each of their plans and countermeasures. When Wang Sheng got up and left, everywhere he passed, there was a constant sound of teeth chattering. That was the sound of several experts trembling in fear. In this situation, they were dead meat. They had the intention to kill Wang Sheng, and they were already prepared to make a move when Wang Sheng was on his way back to the mansion. When Wang Sheng went upstairs, the young man did not know why, but he quickly poisoned the wine pot on his table. However, Wang Sheng sat in front of him and wanted to drink his wine. It would be strange if it was not intentional. This was what everyone was afraid of because Wang Sheng and the old Taoist together definitely had the ability to kill them silently. Even if Wang Sheng exposed their whereabouts, they did not dare to have the slightest courage to take action. If they didn't make a move now and were killed by Wang Sheng, then so be it. However, if they dared to resist, it wouldn't just be a single clan that would die. What made these experts overjoyed was that Wang Sheng didn't seem to be interested in their lives. He just passed by and didn't even spare them a glance before leaving. It was not until Wang Sheng's figure had left the restaurant and walked along the street that the dozen people in the restaurant let out a long sigh of relief. When everyone raised their heads, they saw a group of people who looked as if they had just been fished out of the water. Every one of them was drenched in sweat and looked as if they had just survived a disaster. Two of them almost collapsed, including the young man who had poisoned them. What they didn't see was that there were at least 70 or 80 people on the floors above and below them, and even the houses next to them. All of them had expressions of fear, as if they had just escaped death. Wang Sheng's words were heard not only by the people in the building, but also by the people within a few miles, and they began to spread it by word of mouth. Along the way, it was unknown how many people had the idea, but after hearing Wang Sheng's analysis, they all gave up decisively. Everyone wanted to make a fortune, but they didn't want to lose their lives. If they could make a fortune by risking their lives, it was worth it. However, if they risked their lives only to hear a sound at most, then there were no fools in this world. Who would do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing? At this time, it was evening. There were a lot of people eating and more people spending. Countless people watched Wang Sheng and the old Taoist with their hands clasped behind their backs, slowly passing through the flow of people and returning to Duke Chongqing's mansion in the inner city. Along the way, not to mention people making a move, people who were far away obediently avoided them, as if there was something on Wang Sheng that people were afraid of. Just as Wang Sheng stepped into the gate of Duke Chongqing's mansion, many forces in the capital also received the report at the same time and knew what happened not long ago. This guy, he really saw through it. The emperor kept shaking his head, but his eyes were full of admiration. If one had to ask what the Son of Heaven was most proud of in the past few years, it would be successfully winning over Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had given the Son of Heaven advice on several occasions, and every time, the emperor felt that he could push the royal family and the power of the capital forward by a big step. Duke Chongqing is always wise but stupid. Stewardly next to him joked, "It's not surprising that he can make any big scene." Big scene? The emperor shook his head and laughed. Not big at all. He just went into a roadside restaurant and drank a few glasses of wine, and Zhu Xiaodong's wishful thinking fell through. "This is brilliant. Your Majesty is wise." Stewardly quietly praised the emperor and then asked worriedly, "If someone among the major feudal lords has an idea, at least they won't make a move in the capital." The emperor replied with certainty, "Compared to Shanyue Kingdom, the major feudal lords still care about their face. Even if it's just for show, they will protect it." Of course, Song Yin also heard the news, but she didn't expect Wang Sheng to solve the problem on the way. Her heart relaxed, and even the food that was just served by her personal maid was delicious. "Miss, every time the master comes, you don't let him eat. Isn't that a bit too much?" Seeing that Song Yin was in a good mood, the personal maid next to her couldn't help but ask with a smile. "I just don't let him eat." Song Yin thought of Wang Sheng's abomination and suddenly had a small temper. Her childlike behavior made the maid cover her mouth and snicker. The Xia Kingdom's elders in the capital seriously pondered over Wang Sheng's words. Would the Xia family really allow a little guy to jump out and take over the 4 cities of the Xia family? The other elders in the capital were also pondering the possibility of using this method to take over the 4 cities of the Xia family. The reactions of the various families were not the same. The moment Wang Sheng stepped into Chongqing Duke's mansion, he saw Mayor running out in joy. She jumped into Wang Sheng's arms from afar. "Master, you're really amazing." Mayor didn't expect that Wang Sheng would bring back such amazing news in the blink of an eye after leaving Song Yan's mansion. She thought about how Wang Sheng and the old Taoist walked into the restaurant, drank the poisoned wine without fear, and spoke righteously, causing the hundreds of assassins around them to slip away gloomily. It was really refreshing to hear. However, what made Mayor the happiest was that Wang Sheng didn't stay until night, but came out in the afternoon. This was the most fundamental reason for Mei-er's cheerful mood. Wang Sheng carried Mei-er in his arms and smiled at Rosa, who was beside him. "Rosa, go get something to eat. She's too much. She doesn't let the master eat every time." At this time, Mei-er began to fight for Wang Sheng. She spoke righteously, as if the person who disrespected Wang Sheng in the morning was not her, but someone else. In the future, if she dares to mistreat the master like this, you should never go to her courtyard again. Chapter 12:14. Although he said that, when Wang Sheng returned to the Grandview Garden and wanted to eat, he was forced by Mei Er to take a bath. He was only allowed to eat after washing himself clean. The reason was very strong. Didn't Wang Sheng go out to drink poison wine? Some people even planned to use poisonous needles and snakes to plot against him. They were afraid that he would bring some poison back, so he had to wash himself clean. Didn't Wang Sheng and Rosa know that Mei Er wanted Wang Sheng to wash away Song Yan's smell? In the next few days, Wang Sheng went to Song Yan's place for 2 days, but he spent most of his time in the workshop. He had no choice. Song Yan wanted a peony blossom concentric ball, and the Empress had to find a way to explain it. He might as well carve a white lotus blossom concentric ball for her. The old Taoist and Wang Sheng had discussed the principle of blooming flowers, but the old Taoist couldn't compare to Wang Sheng in this aspect. Wang Sheng knew the principle of temporary visual retention on Earth. There were 128 little people with fighting consciousness in his soul space, which could transform at any time to simulate the effect formed by the rotation of the 75 layers of balls. This was the key to Wang Sheng's ability to accurately adjust the rotation speed of the different layers of balls. No matter how high the old Taoist cultivation was, there was no way he could compare to Wang Sheng in this aspect. This was not a matter of cultivation. Therefore, the old Taoist could only imitate Wang Sheng's technique. When he started carving the second time, he carved the concentric ball Wang Sheng had carved for Rosa before the concert. Wang Sheng gave a strict order to the women in the Grandview Garden. They were not allowed to advance. Even if someone advanced during the concert, the women in the Grandview Garden were not allowed to advance. If it was a normal cultivator, they might not be able to control it at all. But the women were different. They had all cultivated again after their cultivation was abolished. They had also recultivated the improved Yongchun heart technique, which could be regarded as the same origin. There was no problem in controlling the spiritual qi. It would be difficult for him to advance, but he could still control himself if he didn't want to advance. The Grandmaster performed twice in a row. The first performance could be considered as an internal performance. The women from the Grandview Garden, Song Yan's group, and the Emperor and Lotsu's audience all listened to the performance as normal. They had all been warned in advance, so no one had advanced. The second performance was to sell tickets to various parties. This time, there were more people who advanced. Basically, other than Wang Sheng, Mei Er, Rosa, the old Taoist Tianzi's group, and Song Yan's group, there were less than 100 people who had yet to advance. The rest were all experts on the verge of breaking through. The large ball of spiritual energy formed by the breakthrough spun for 3 days and 3 nights, plus half a day. Wang Sheng calmly enjoyed the benefits of the ball of spiritual energy, but he still didn't take the initiative to cultivate. He just passively accepted the washing of the ball of spiritual energy in his body. Song Yan did not stay in Beijing for long. After the performance, she asked Wang Sheng to accompany her for a day. Then, she hurried back to Song. Wang Sheng had told her about the complete map of the land of Thousand Despair. She had to go back and prepare no matter what. While Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su continued to work in the workshop, the gold notes of Li Zhenfang were now unstoppable. No other vassal state could stop them. The war chariot of finance began to speed up. It was invincible. Not to mention the big vassal states. Even the small vassal states began to customize their own gold notes. It was unknown if Mei Er and Rosa had done it intentionally or unintentionally, but one day, they let slip that every state could set up their own exchange organization and exchange gold notes for the common people of each state. This immediately spread to every state. Then, their eyes suddenly lit up. The state did not have much gold coins, so it could only borrow money from Li Zhenfang to issue gold notes. However, just because the state was poor did not mean that the common people were poor. Otherwise, why would the capital's real estate be so prosperous? If they could collect gold coins from the common people and then use them to repay the loan from Li Zhenfang, wouldn't it be killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Moreover, if they used their own country's gold notes, wouldn't it show that they were more united and easier to control? There was even a 1,000 processing fee for exchanging gold coins for Li Zhenfang's gold notes, while the exchange within the state was only 1/100th. This was a difference of 10 times. Such a small proportion was certainly not unbearable for the common people. It also saved them the trouble of going to the capital to exchange, but the state brought in extra income. How much was 1/100th of 1 billion gold coins? 10 million gold coins. Just by exchanging them, the national treasury or public treasury could earn 10 million gold coins. This was a good business. With the vigorous promotion of all parties, Li Zhenfang's custom-made gold notes spread throughout the world in an unstoppable manner. Of course, the original unmarked gold notes of Li Zhenfang were directly defined as capital gold notes. They could be used in every state, but they were mainly used in the capital. While Li Zhenfang's gold notes were conquering the city, the capital's real estate was also skyrocketing. Not to mention other things, the construction of the Imperial College was very fast, and people could already move in. They just had to wait for the university scholars invited by the emperor to come. On Wang Sheng's side, he also took the time to draw the outline of 5 theaters and handed them to the architects to figure out how to decorate them. He also began to dig the foundations. Mayer imitated moisturizing workshops business and built 2 shopping streets for women in each of the 4 directions of the capital's outer city. The one near the inner city was more high-end, and the one near the outer city was more low-end. However, men were also not allowed to enter. They only sold small things that women liked to eat, drink, and play. This made the women inside and outside the capital joyful. Not every woman had the confidence to enter moisturizing workshop, but these 8 streets could be carefully strolled. Some women who never left their houses could also have a place to relax. Mayer, it was very trustworthy. She said that she wouldn't do any business other than finance. Immediately, a shrewd businessman saw this and directly bought a large area in these streets. The low-end beauty salon of Shui Runzi Workshop, the gym of Shui Dream Workshop, and a fashion show were all built. Just these streets alone, there were more than thousands of women hired. Li Zhenfang also launched a batch of relatively friendly 2-section courtyards near these areas. As expected, they were all sold out. The purchasing power of the people in the capital, was enough to shock many people. The situation was good, but some people just had to make trouble. Last time, Wang Sheng's word in the restaurant made countless people who wanted to make a move on Wang Sheng give up their original plans. The major vassal states were also busy with the gold notes. As a result, the huge reward that Zhu Xiaodong promised was actually ignored. If it was just this, Zhu Xiaodong was afraid that he would not be so irritable. However, there was another thing that made Zhu Xiaodong crazy. He desperately wanted to take revenge. Chapter 12:15. Zhu Xiaodong was an idiot. He wasn't a man of action at all. The reason why he could become the ruler of Shanyue was because of his father, Zhu Xingxing. Zhu Xingxing had put in a lot of effort to control the Shanyue kingdom. He made use of the preachers of the Dao sect leader to give himself the title of divine messenger. He then used the simplest and most bewitching divine religion to control the barbarians of the Shanyue kingdom. The entire process took Zhu Xingxing decades. There was a period of time when Baoqin Yutang was supported by Mayer. After Zhu Xiaodong took charge, the first thing he did wasn't to manage the business, but to fight for power. After Zhu Xingxing was beheaded by Wang Sheng during the sacrificial ceremony, the old shopkeepers under Zhu Xingxing immediately jumped out to temporarily control Shanyue. However, it was only temporary. The barbarians only recognized Zhu Xingxing as the divine messenger, where they had been instructed by Zhu Xingxing to recognize his son, Zhu Xiaodong, after he passed away. Seeing that they couldn't control Shanyue anymore, the old men had no choice but to use Zhu Xiaodong as the divine messenger to suppress the barbarians in Shanyue. It didn't take long for the words that Wang Sheng said in the restaurant to be delivered to Zhu Xiaodong's desk. However, Zhu Xiaodong didn't even bother to look at it. He was in power now. The barbarians in Shanyue and the 4 cities belonged to him. He could do whatever he wanted here. Wang Sheng and Zhu Xiaodong had killed their father. Zhu Xiaodong hated Wang Sheng to the core. Now, he couldn't wait to cut Wang Sheng into 1,000 pieces. Zhu Xiaodong's previous offer of a bounty had been a little trick. He wanted to see Wang Sheng being hunted down in a state of panic. It was a pity that Zhu Xiaodong had great ambition but little talent. He thought that everything was under his control after the bounty was posted. He turned around and went back to enjoying himself. Although the barbarian race hadn't been civilized for a long time, but the entire barbarian race had tens of millions of people. So there are always a few stunning beauties in the world. Now, they had all been taken into Zhu Xiaodong's room. They were having so much fun that they forgot about their duties. So, how could they care about other things? Seeing this situation, the old shopkeepers who had followed Zhu Xingxing all sighed in their hearts. It was a deep and powerless despair. Why had their entire family followed Zhu Xingxing to the Mountain Yu map? Wasn't it all for the sake of obtaining a high position after the Land of Mountains was established? But now, where would he get such an opportunity? If Zhu Xingxing had followed the prescribed path of development and spent a year or two more, he would have been able to purchase a minor title from the emperor through several high-ranking officials of the imperial court. Coupled with the support of the Dai Kingdom and the great merit of taking over the land of Yu, becoming a vassal state was not just a dream. At that time, success and recognition would bring honor to his ancestors. Unfortunately, all the beautiful prospects were ruined by Zhu Xingxing's prodigal son, Zhu Xiaodong. Zhu Xiaodong made a trip to the capital and listened to a concert. In the end, the disguised Zhu Xiaodong saw Wang Sheng and Mei Er being intimate and immediately flew into a rage. He was stopped in the city, but when he left the city, he couldn't help but send people to massacre the entire village that worked for Mei Er to vent his anger. Zhu Xingxing was very unhappy, but since it was his son's doing, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. The biggest punishment was to ground Zhu Xiaodong for a few months, but the impact of this matter could no longer be erased. After that, things took a turn for the worse. The Mountain Yu Kingdom was not ready yet, but was forced to face the encirclement and suppression of the various vassal states. Step by step, they finally reached where they were today. From the moment they saw Zhu Xiaodong indulging in fun, those old shopkeepers who were loyal to him knew that the Mountain Yu Kingdom was finished, especially when they saw Wang Sheng's bounty against Zhu Xiaodong and how he destroyed all of Zhu Xiaodong's plans with just a few words. They were completely in despair. That fellow was really an idiot. Rather than using such a huge bounty to fool others, he might as well go to the carefree city and save up enough money to buy Wang Sheng's head. That way, he might be able to succeed more easily. While Zhu Xiaodong was having fun, he didn't know that the group of people his father had left behind for him had already started to turn against him. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Those old fools were all relying on their status to criticize him. He had long grown impatient. It would be best if they all disappeared in front of him forever. Zhu Xiaodong's wish came true. Everyone he didn't want to see had all disappeared. In fact, as early as when the Lijian Lane released the third batch of premium mansions, these old shopkeepers of the Mountain Yu Kingdom had already secretly sent people to buy mansions in the capital. They had also secretly sent their families over. In any case, it was very easy for these shopkeepers to command a few flying demonic beasts in the Mountain Yu Kingdom at that time. Wang Sheng's reply made these old shopkeepers even more determined to leave. The Mountain Yu Kingdom was finished. They didn't want to die with the people of the Mountain Yu Kingdom. While Wang Sheng was concentrating on carving concentric balls for the queen and Song Yin, Mei Er had already received a letter from one of the old shopkeepers of the Baoqing Yutang. The letter was very sincere. They were willing to follow Zhu Xingxing to the ends of the world, but they weren't willing to follow Zhu Xiaodong to his death. Therefore, they were willing to surrender with their families, a batch of resources from the Mountain Yu Kingdom, and dozens of flying demonic beasts. It was up to Mei Er to kill or torture them. It was fine as long as their families weren't killed. Master, what do you think? Mei Er handed the letter to Wang Sheng while eating, letting Wang Sheng decide. What do you think? After reading the letter, Wang Sheng didn't directly state his decision. Instead, he asked Mei Er, why did they surrender to you instead of the vassal states or the emperor? After all, These old shopkeepers worked with me in the past. Mayer couldn't help but say, it's a pity that they chose to follow the wrong path. I'm sure they're thinking of having such a relationship. Then do as you see fit. Wang Sheng smiled. He could feel Mayer's conflicting thoughts. Moreover, Mayer seemed to want to spare their lives. Wang Sheng didn't want Mayer to be a bloodthirsty person. This was fine. Then I'll let them leave their flying mounts and half of the things they brought. How about that? Mayer didn't hide her intentions and asked Wang Sheng. Sure. Wang Sheng nodded. As long as they aren't involved in your business. Wang Sheng nodded. Mayer was instantly overjoyed. She came up to Wang Sheng and kissed him. Then, she happily went to make the arrangements. Once these people left, Zhu Xiaodong would probably go crazy. They were going to take away a batch of resources and flying mounts. By taking drastic measures, the Mountain Yu Kingdom's fighting strength would probably be greatly reduced. Chapter 12:16. Wang Sheng didn't realize how anxious these old shopkeepers were. He thought it would take at least 10 days to half a month, or even longer to arrange such a big thing. However, when they had dinner together the next night, Mer told Wang Sheng that they would land in the suburbs of the capital on the third night. Why were they so anxious? Wang Sheng didn't know what happened, but he could wait for these people to come before asking about the specific inside story. He had to pick them up first. They landed in the suburbs of the capital. Wang Sheng greeted the old Taoist and sent a letter to the Grand Abbey Dean overnight. The next night, Wang Sheng, old Taoist, Mer, Rosa, and a large number of Taoists of the Laojun Temple were already waiting at the agreed place. There were 3 bonfires on the ground, which were signals to mark the landing place. They didn't have to wait for a long time. Before midnight, Wang Sheng, old Taoist, and the Grand Abbey Dean all looked in one direction. The others reacted a little slower, but after a while, they also heard the movement coming from that direction. At this time, they could already see those huge shadows flying in the sky with the help of the moonlight. There were only a dozen flying evil beasts in total, which was normal. It would be abnormal if these old shopkeepers controlled all the flying evil beasts. Each of them controlled 1 or 2 to leave a way out for themselves. This was a plan. If they were greedy, perhaps these old shopkeepers would have been killed by the masters of the barbarian tribe. Not only the old shopkeepers were smart, but there were also wise men in the barbarian tribe. There was no commotion, no fake landing or ambush. More than a dozen flying demonic beasts slowly flew over and landed steadily. There were at least 3 people sitting on each mount. One of them was an old man of the barbarian tribe, who was responsible for controlling the mounts. The others were obviously the old shopkeepers and their families. Facing the Taoist priests of the Laojun Temple who surrounded them, these people didn't struggle or resist at all. They got off their mounts obediently and knelt respectfully in front of Mei under the lead of a few old shopkeepers. They didn't say anything, and each of the shopkeepers held a storage ring in their hands as they waited for Mei to deal with them. His attitude was very good, and there didn't seem to be any traps. The ones controlling the flying mounts were all old barbarians, so when Zhu Xingxing used religious methods to control the barbarians, they definitely didn't cooperate. Zhu Xiaodong did not know when he had started colluding with these old shopkeepers. They probably did not have high hopes for Zhu Xiaodong. Surrendering now could be considered as forsaking darkness for light. Mayer turned to look at Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng nodded. Mayer immediately smiled. Standing in front of the group of old shopkeepers, Mayer was very straightforward and did not hesitate at all. She took more than half of the storage rings in each shopkeeper's hands and left the rest to the shopkeepers. You can leave. Under the incredulous gazes of the group, Mayer said, I'll leave those things for you to live in retirement. Don't have any contact with Shanyue country in the future. Originally, those old shopkeepers were prepared to die, so they brought a few of their nephews over to collect their corpses. After they contacted Mayer agreed to their request to surrender, but she didn't tell them how she would deal with them. However, Mayer's good reputation in the business made these old shopkeepers choose to trust Mayer. This time, they originally planned to leave a way for their descendants with their deaths, but they didn't expect that Mayer would actually let them go. Not only that, but she also left them some resources for them to live in retirement and the conditions were so simple. This made the group of old shopkeepers cry with excitement. Even the elderly would feel the joy of escaping from death. The group of old shopkeepers kowtowed and swore to the heavens that they would never contact Shanua country again. At this time, even if they were to contact Shanua country, they would be afraid of getting into trouble. How could they repeat the same mistake? The Laojun Temple accepted this batch of flying mounts, and the dozen barbarian old men who were controlling the flying mounts were also taken away. They were actually one with the mounts, and no one was controlling them. Perhaps only Wang Sheng and the old Taoist could use the 9 syllables to control these flying demonic beasts. The dozen old shopkeepers thanked Mayer profusely, and even told her where their families were staying in the capital city. They completely expressed their sincerity and only wanted to live in retirement. Since Mayer didn't kill them, she naturally wouldn't make things difficult for their families. The current mayor's vision was no longer at the level of the Baoqin Yutangs. While comforting those old shopkeepers, she even suggested that they buy a few shops in the capital city and do the business they were good at. It could be considered as a foundation for a peaceful life. This wasn't a heart-to-heart talk, but it was already very respectful. These old shopkeepers were very grateful, and they all wanted to tell her the current situation of Shanua country. The Grand Abbot felt that the environment wasn't suitable and asked Mayer to bring them back first. Zhu Xiaodong was really an idiot. He didn't realize that something was wrong until 5 or 6 days after these old shopkeepers arrived in the capital city. In a great shock, he checked and found that the easiest things to take away had all been taken away by the group of old shopkeepers. Only then did he panic. After continuing to investigate, he found out that the old shopkeepers had gone to the capital city to surrender to Wang Sheng. Zhu Xiaodong went crazy again. He and Wang Sheng were absolutely irreconcilable, and these old guys actually went to surrender to Wang Sheng. How could he tolerate this? Those who stayed in Ningyue City to accompany Zhu Xiaodong were naturally the most thoroughly brainwashed barbarians. They worshipped Zhu Xiaodong, the successor of God's messenger. Under the furious order of the crazy Zhu Xiaodong, they rode on their flying mounts that night and massacred at least 4 villages in the suburbs of the capital city that worked for Runzi Workshop. Of course, these experts were not fools. They only dared to show off in the suburbs of the capital city. There were too many experts in the capital city now, and no one dared to let their flying mounts approach. The news was urgently sent to Changxing Gongfu. Mayer hurriedly broke into the workshop, ignoring Wang Sheng and the old Taoist who were carving concentric balls, and told the news to Wang Sheng. No one knew Wang Sheng better than Mayer. Why did Wang Sheng want to kill Zhu Xingxing? Wasn't it because the first village was slaughtered? Now, these fellows were actually using this trick to provoke Wang Sheng. Fine, they had achieved their goal. When Wang Sheng listened to the news, he was unusually calm, but Mayer could feel Wang Sheng's anger from his calmness. Mayer, pass the message for me. Wang Sheng suppressed his anger and said to Mayer, tell them that I have a complete map of the core of the place of Thousand Despair. Whoever brings Zhu Xingxing's head here, I will give it to him. If others want it, they can only delay it for another 6 months. Let the feudal lords decide for themselves. Chapter 12:17. The reason why Shanyu State could survive until now was because the interests of all parties were not balanced. Therefore, everyone allowed Shanyu State to exist and fought for their own interests in other areas. Among them, there were many who wanted to suppress the Xia clan, weaken the Xia clan's power, and so on. Even the emperor, who seemed to have no demand from Shanyu State, wanted to use Shanyu State to exhaust the experts of other countries and indirectly weaken the strength of all parties. Even Carefree City, which did not have any territorial demands from Shanyu State, was happy to see Shanyu State continue to exist. Then, all parties would fight each other and earn a lot of money. The existence of Shanyu State itself was a huge collection of interests. Countless people reaped great benefits from it. However, no matter how great the benefits of Shanyu State were, could they be greater than the benefits of the inner circle of the land of Thousand Despair? When this news came out, the whole world was in an uproar. The complete map of the inner circle of the land of Thousand Despair. It was said that the map not only contained the detailed location of all the formations, but also the distribution of various demonic beasts and terrain. It also contained the temporary campsites that Wang Sheng had left behind when he had explored the terrain. It was even rumored that the Shi family and the Gan family had hidden their treasures. Everyone was in an uproar. They thought more and more clearly. There were more people with discerning eyes. Like Song Yin, they instantly discovered some of the hidden information. Wang Sheng had stayed in the capital for more than half a year. He had either broken through to the great Grandmaster realm or carved concentric flowers for his beauty. He had never left the capital. Why had Wang Sheng drawn the complete map? Obviously, it had been before he had returned to the capital. He had already had the complete map, but he had kept it a secret until now. What did it mean? No one was a fool. Many people immediately deduced that someone must have bought the map first, just like the Shi family and the Gan family. Who? It was too easy to guess. After Wang Sheng had returned to the capital, which family had dealt with Wang Sheng? The Xia family, the Qiu family, the Tang family, and the later ones were all small skirmishes. With a little deduction, the various parties placed their target on the head of Xia. Among these few families, only the Xia family had sold their pots and pans to raise money. Who else could it be other than them? The Gan clan had also paid a large sum of gold coins. However, the Gan clan was truly foolish to actually want to kill Wang Sheng. Now that the news had spread, wouldn't they be in a difficult position? In all honesty, the Gan clan's king and grand elders wanted to cry, but had no tears. At that time, they really didn't want to kill Wang Sheng. They only wanted to kill old Taoist Ling Su and then capture Wang Sheng alive. But now, they had to taste the disastrous consequences of their rash actions. The various countries would join forces to destroy the Shanyu kingdom, and then snatch Zhu Xiaodong's head? This was actually very easy. If the major clans really joined forces, not to mention the few thousand experts of the Shanyu kingdom, even if they had double the number, it wouldn't be a problem. It was just that he was unwilling. However, the situation was different now. Since Wang Sheng had taken out a complete map of the core of the grounds of Thousand Despair, it was a completely different matter. Everyone knew the principle of first come, first served. They had already fallen behind the Xia family by more than half a year. If they continued to allow the Xia family to use the complete map to explore the core of the grounds of Thousand Despair, what would they be left with? Everyone began to rub their palms together, but no one attacked the 4 cities of the Shanyu kingdom first. The 4 cities originally belonged to the Xia family. Now that they had conquered them, who would they belong to? Rather than quarreling and fighting, it was better not to have any designs on the 4 cities from the start. Wang Sheng had also said that he only wanted Zhu Xiaodong's head, not the 4 cities, right? The Xia family had already taken the lead. If the various parties still didn't know how to add more trouble to the Xia family, how could they still be called the feudal lords? In less than 3 days, a set of information about the surrounding terrain of Ningyu City was publicly sold in the Carefree City. The description of Ningyu City was quite detailed. Even the small paths and rivers in the surroundings were marked out. Such detailed information made people sigh with emotion. It was either leaked by the current people of Ningyu City, or it was leaked by the people who built Ningyu City in the past by the Xia family. If this was just an ordinary product, then the other set of top-secret information, which contained tens of ways to enter Ningyu City for 100,000 gold coins each, was truly high-level information. A real tycoon bought a copy dubiously. Then, as if he had obtained a priceless treasure, he went straight to the land of Thousand Despair without looking back. As a result, more and more people bought this set of top-secret information. Just the information alone was sold for tens of millions of gold coins. No one knew that these 2 sets of information were provided by the old shopkeepers who had surrendered. They were extremely real-time and easy to operate. With this alone, Mayer easily earned 20 million gold coins. 1 month after Wang Sheng released the news, Ningyu City was in chaos. Countless barbarian experts fought with a group of experts who appeared out of nowhere. It was a group of red card and blue card assassins of the Carefree City. Unfortunately, the movement was too big and alarmed Zhu Xiaodong. Their plan to kill Zhu Xiaodong was not successful. But this had proved the correctness of the two sets of information. As a result, the two sets of information once again sold like hotcakes. In the following month, the rest of Shanghai country was calm. Only Ningyu City had big and small battles almost every day. What was even more strange was that in such an environment, Zhu Xiaodong did not leave Ningyu City to hide in other cities. Instead, he had been drinking and having fun in Ningyu City until a super expert stood in front of him. This guy is Zhu Xiaodong. Wang Sheng and Meyer looked at the unconscious guy who was as fat as a pig on the ground and could not help but sigh. Duke, it's the real Zhu Xiaodong. The one who brought Zhu Xiaodong to Duke Chongqing's mansion to receive the reward was the elder of the Shi family stationed in the capital and a pair of experts. The one who answered was the elder stationed in the capital himself. This was the 59th day after Wang Sheng released the news less than 2 months ago. Coincidentally, it had been more than a year since the Xia clan had obtained the map. A few more days had passed. He has been waiting for you in Ningyu City. Meyer was still very puzzled. Wang Sheng did not pay attention to the outside world during this time, but she had been paying attention to it. Even if he was really a pig and found that Ningyu City was not safe, he should have changed places, right? It was incredible that this guy had been staying in Ningyu City. It's not surprising. The elder of the Shi family stationed in the capital laughed. We just asked on the way. He didn't know what had happened recently. He thought it was just the same as before when Xia wanted a sneak attack. He firmly believed that his barbarian people would wipe out the enemies. Chapter 12:18. He was indeed a weirdo. Wang Sheng and Meyer gave him a new definition in their minds. Looking closely at the fat man on the ground, they could see that he was indeed the handsome young master they had met many years ago. It had only been a short period of time, but he had already become like this. The experts of the Shi clan had entered Ningyu City through those top-secret documents. What puzzled everyone was that the people of the state of Shanghai had not received any news of such a huge commotion in Worry-Free City. This was not strange. All of the means of communication of the state of Shanghai were in the hands of the old shopkeepers who were Zhu Xingxing's trusted aides. Those people had already surrendered, so who else would send the news to Zhu Xiaodong? As for the wise men of the barbarian tribe, they had risen to power too recently, so they hadn't had the time to get rid of the barbarian aura on their bodies. Thus, they couldn't send people to infiltrate the ordinary people. Therefore, even though almost everyone in the kingdom knew about it, the people of the state of Shanghai had not received the slightest bit of news. What was even more shocking was that none of the 4 cities of the state of Shanghai had suffered any destructive damage. They were still intact. The barbarian experts who were stationed there still firmly occupied the 4 cities. They were like a huge nail that had been inserted into the belly of the state of Xia. A neatly rolled animal skin scroll was slowly pushed in front of the elder of the Shi clan stationed in the capital. The group of people from the Shi clan looked at the animal skin scroll, and their hands almost reached out from their eyes, wishing they could immediately snatch it. However, Wang Sheng did not immediately let go of the animal skin scroll. Instead, he asked with interest, "Can the barbarians still defend the 4 cities of the state of Shanghai?" The elder of the Shi family stationed in the capital also placed his hand on the bee skin scroll and replied with a smile, "Lord High Duke, I don't know which group of experts sneaked into Ningyu City to attack, but they were besieged and lost a bunch of storage rings. Inside were large amounts of food and other supplies, enough for the barbarians in the 4 cities to eat for several years. Do you think these guys lost money?" "I see." A strange smile appeared on Wang Sheng's face, and he let go of the animal skin scroll. The elder of the Shi clan moved very quickly. Almost as soon as Wang Sheng let go, he picked up the animal skin scroll. He didn't care if it was rude to open it on the spot and directly opened it on his seat. A complete square map of the grounds of Thousand Extremities was presented before the Shi family elder and a few experts. The densely packed lines and various markings on it allowed people to tell at a glance that this was a complete map, unlike the incomplete map that was missing a large circle in the middle. There were a few special symbols that the Shi family elder did not understand. Seeing that Wang Sheng was right in front of him, he hurriedly asked, Duke, this symbol is... Before he finished speaking, Wang Sheng had already pointed at the bottom right corner of the map. Elder Shi looked at it and saw that the various symbols were clearly written on it. He didn't say anything and looked at it carefully. After a while, Elder Shi raised his head and looked at Wang Sheng. Just as he was about to say something, Wang Sheng spoke first. From today onwards, Qin Xingyuan will only start selling this map in half a year. Thank you, Duke. This was the promise that Elder Shi wanted from Wang Sheng. Now that he had received it, both parties were satisfied. The major clans really did not want to let the Xia family have the upper hand. However, the truth could not be changed. Therefore, they could only use all kinds of methods to hinder the Xia family. For example, the bounties placed on the experts of the Xia family were increasing. There were even people from Ningyu City who had infiltrated the city to deliver food and supplies. This was so that they could occupy the 4 cities of the Xia family for a long period of time and fight against the Xia family. It could be said that they were unscrupulous. The Shi family elder left with a group of experts. The reason why they brought this group of experts was because almost all the forces knew that they had brought Zhu Xiaodong into Duke Chongqing's estate. Therefore, when they left, they would definitely bring the complete map of the grounds of Thousand Extremities. Without the protection of experts, who would be at ease? None of the experts in the capital made a move. Everyone had a tacit understanding to keep their promise to the emperor. They would not make a move in the capital. Apart from taking care of the emperor's reputation and their own promises, all the forces had their descendants safely residing in the capital. Regardless of whether it was the experts or the higher-ups, no one wanted to destroy this paradise that they might be able to enjoy in the future. Everything could wait until they left the capital. It was impossible for the Shi family to stay in the capital with the map. That was no different from not having the map at all. Therefore, they would definitely send the map back to the Shi kingdom and organize people to enter the grounds of Thousand Extremities. During that time, they would have plenty of time and opportunities to do whatever they wanted. There was no need to make all the forces in the capital unhappy. The stability and unity of the capital was not easy to come by. It was not easy to destroy it. They could only blame their bad luck. How did Zhu Xiaodong end up bumping into the Shi clan's experts when he was moving around in this large-scale attack? Heaven's will, no one else could be blamed. Looking at Zhu Xiaodong's bounty, and then looking at Wang Sheng's bounty, the difference was like heaven and earth. One of them was willing to give everything he had, but no one paid any attention to him. The other was just casually taking a map, and the target was obediently delivered to him. He was afraid that just the head was not enough, so he purposely sent a living person over to him. He could kill him as he pleased and vent his anger as he pleased. Why was there such a big difference between them? Elder Shi left with the map and satisfaction. Mayer and Wang Sheng looked speechlessly at the unconscious Zhu Xiaodong on the ground. This guy was a hopeless fool. Even in this situation, he still had the mood to eat, drink, and be merry. If he was not open-minded, he would not have eaten so much that he looked like a pig. He was open-minded enough. Mayer, what should we do with him? Wang Sheng looked at the guy who was useless to him and lost interest in killing him. Such a guy only dared to challenge those defenseless villagers. Killing him would dirty Wang Sheng's hands. Let's ask him first. Mayer was really grateful to Zhu Xingxing for raising him. Even though Zhu Xiaodong had done so many things and even wanted to kill Mayer, she did not take the initiative to make things difficult for Zhu Xingxing. It was Wang Sheng's decision to kill Zhu Xingxing. It had nothing to do with Mayer. Now, facing the unconscious Zhu Xiaodong, Mayer did not pay attention to him and did not know what to do. I'll leave him to you. Wang Sheng nodded. He understood Mayer's contradiction, so he did not force Mayer to do anything. However, Wang Sheng believed that Mayer would understand his mind. For the villagers who were killed, Wang Sheng was willing to take the risk to kill Zhu Xingxing. Later on, Zhu Xiaodong killed the villagers of 4 villages. For this matter, someone had to pay the price. Chapter 12:19. Based on what? A violent roar came from Zhu Xiaodong's mouth. Opposite him sat Mayer and Rosa quietly, with a few female guards who were at least in the 8th stage realm standing beside them. There were also a few behind Zhu Xiaodong. Once Zhu Xiaodong made any move that was against Mei and Rosa, they would kill Zhu Xiaodong on the spot. At this moment, Zhu Xiaodong's round face, which was filled with fat, had no wrinkles, but there was an indescribable ferocity as he roared at Mei. Based on what? Those shopkeepers in Bao Qing Yutang have to listen to you? You're just a servant raised by my father, and you dare to fight with me for Bao Qing Yutang? Zhu Xiaodong had already regained consciousness at this moment. When he saw Mei, he could finally say the words that he didn't have a chance to say before. Mei just looked at Zhu Xiaodong quietly and didn't reply, letting Zhu Xiaodong vent his anger. Zhu Xiaodong was just a prisoner now, and his life and death were in Mei's hands. No matter how powerful his words were, or how fierce his scolding was, it couldn't change this point. Seeing that Mei ignored his venting, Zhu Xiaodong got even angrier. That year when he took over Bao Qing Yutang, Mei didn't set any obstacles for him and let him take over easily while she retired to the second line. But Zhu Xiaodong wasn't satisfied. He wanted those bootlickers around him to take over, not those old subordinates left behind by Mei. The stupid Zhu Xiaodong had never thought about the real purpose of those fellows who instigated him to send his trusted men to take over Bao Qing Yutang. He only knew that those people swore to the heavens that they would follow him till death. Now there was no one following Zhu Xiaodong because Zhu Xingxing had completely wiped out those people after the incident in Tongxing City in the Imperial Treasury. Based on what? Everyone says that you're capable? Why does everyone think I did something wrong? Zhu Xiaodong was almost roaring. What did I do wrong? As the young master of Bao Qing Yutang, is it wrong for me to be in charge of Bao Qing Yutang? What's wrong with changing a few people? Can I? Listening to Zhu Xiaodong's roar, Mei seemed to hear something interesting. She leaned back, tilted her head slightly, and watched Zhu Xiaodong's performance with interest. She still didn't say a word. However, the mocking smile at the corner of her mouth had already told Zhu Xiaodong what Mei was thinking. The current Mei was an 8th-stage expert, and her soul had already turned into a 3-tailed celestial fox. That kind of natural charm that emanated from her bones, not to mention Zhu Xiaodong. Even the old Taoist Ling, Su, sometimes found it hard to resist. Zhu Xiaodong's gaze instantly froze when he saw Mei acting like a high and mighty queen. Oomph. A dissatisfied snort came out from Rosa's mouth. Zhu Xiaodong actually dared to use such a lecherous gaze to look at Mei. This was a huge disrespect. Usually, even Rosa's gaze towards Mei was affectionate. How could she tolerate Zhu Xiaodong's rudeness? Following Rosa's snort, a female guard lightly kicked Zhu Xiaodong's leg. Zhu Xiaodong's body fell forward and one leg knelt on the ground. The intense pain made him unable to pay attention to Mei's face in front of him, and he couldn't help but scream. When had the dignified Zhu Xiaodong ever suffered such pain? Even if he messed up the Shan Yu Kingdom's matter, he was only grounded for a few months. During that period, there were plenty of beauties accompanying him. Who would dare to treat him like this? After screaming for a while, Zhu Xiaodong finally recovered. He raised his head and shouted at Mei, "Slut." Rosa was furious and was about to flare up. However, Mei shook her head and continued to stare at Zhu Xiaodong silently, as if waiting for him to speak. "You are a servant raised by my father. You should be kneeling at my feet, flattering me and pleasing me. Who asked you to pretend to be elegant and dare to ignore my appreciation?" Zhu Xiaodong didn't know where he got the wrong idea. He thought that Mei still remembered Zhu Xingxing's kindness in raising her and wouldn't touch him. He became even more courageous. Such a disobedient servant. If I don't kill her, am I supposed to raise her? And that barbarian? Speaking of Mei, Zhu Xiaodong was filled with hatred. However, he hated Wang Sheng even more. He ruined my plans several times. If it wasn't for him, how could you still be alive? If it wasn't for him, I would have found out the whereabouts of the elixir and carried forward Bao Qing Yutang. The frosting and refined salt should have belonged to me, Bao Qing Yutang. The wine business should have belonged to me, Bao Qing Yutang. Why did he give it to the Imperial Treasure House? Zhu Xiaodong really hated it. There were many things that he couldn't forget. Who does he think he is? I just can't stand him. So what? If he dares to work for you too, he deserves to die. Zhu Xiaodong's words became more and more smooth, but also more and more unpleasant. He pointed at Mayer's nose and scolded. I killed them. So what? Can you bring them back to life? Mayer had begun to shake her head slightly. This idiot still doesn't know where he went wrong. It's really sad. If you went to that village later, you should be able to find your father's head on the graves of those villagers. Mayer didn't speak, but it didn't mean that Rosa would tolerate his nonsense. She couldn't help but speak coldly. Zhu Xiaodong's roar stopped in an instant. He looked at Rosa with a face full of disbelief. When he looked at Mayer again, Mayer's expression didn't change. She just nodded slightly. Of course, if there is no accident, your head will soon appear on the graves of the villagers of those 4 villages. Rosa was not afraid to tell the truth to Zhu Xiaodong. This stupid guy was hopelessly stupid. She wanted him to know the horror of death. You can't kill me. You can't kill me. Zhu Xiaodong finally knew fear. He finally understood the situation in front of him. He shouted at Mayer, I am my father's biological son. My father raised you. You can't kill me. You can't be ungrateful. Slap! A slender wooden stick directly hit Zhu Xiaodong's face. It made him a little more sober. Only then did he realize that it wasn't a wooden stick that hit him, but a long sword with a sheath. Spare me. Spare me. Zhu Xiaodong finally understood his situation. He knelt down and kept kowtowing to Mayer. Mayer, for the sake of my father, spare me. I was wrong. Spare me. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I shouldn't have sent people to kill you. While crying, Zhu Xiaodong slapped himself crazily. Tell me what happened after you and your adoptive father came to Shanyue country. Mayer finally said, I want to know. Chapter 1220. Why should he keep these things a secret? To Zhu Xiaodong, he would grab any straw that could save his life, let alone these things. As a matter of fact, the Shi family members had interrogated him about these things on their way here. Could a spoiled young master like Zhu Xiaodong withstand the cruel torture of the Shi family? Without waiting for the Shi family to punish him, he had already obediently spilled everything he knew. He answered everything that was asked, not daring to hide anything. Since he had already revealed everything to the Shi family, why would he feel pressured to tell Mayer about it again? Before Mayer could ask for details, Zhu Xiaodong had already told her everything that Zhu Xingxing and himself had done after arriving at Shanyue land, according to the questions the Shi family members had interrogated him. Mayer listened to everything Zhu Xingxing did very carefully. She had been raised by Zhu Xingxing since she was a child, so she understood Zhu Xingxing more than Zhu Xiaodong. Zhu Xingxing was not the kind of person who would not arrange a backup plan at all costs. No matter what he did, he must have hidden something that others didn't know about as a capital for a comeback. It was just like how Zhu Xingxing had been managing Baoqingyu Hall while secretly managing the affairs of Shanyue land. Over the past few decades, he had not revealed any of this. Did he not know that the feudal vassals would hate him to the core when he was managing Shanyue land? Did he have a backup plan? However, it was obvious that the idiot Zhu Xiaodong would not know about it. Therefore, Mayer could only study the details of Zhu Xingxing's life to figure it out. Zhu Xingxing was very vigilant and would not easily reveal any clues to outsiders. However, he might not be too guarded against Zhu Xiaodong, his son who had been spoiled his whole life. While Zhu Xiaodong was talking incessantly, Mayer and Rosa were taking notes carefully. Some of them were even scribbling away at great speed in places that Zhu Xiaodong could not see, recording everything that Zhu Xiaodong had said. Zhu Xiaodong was more cooperative, so Mayer treated him better. He could talk while sitting in a chair, and he even had tea to drink. This time, Zhu Xiaodong saw more hope, and he spoke more energetically. Not only Zhu Xingxing's life details, but even Zhu Xiaodong's life details were not omitted. Zhu Xiaodong poured out everything like beans from a bamboo tube. Zhu Xingxing's life experience seemed to be relatively normal, but when Zhu Xiaodong talked about himself, perhaps because he felt that the sense of crisis was much smaller, or perhaps because he felt that it was very exciting, he always talked about it with great enthusiasm, and the details became more and more embarrassing. It would be fine if he talked about how he managed his business and how he commanded his men. Even if he did something wrong, as long as he could learn something from it, it would be an experience worth learning from. Unfortunately, Zhu Xiaodong was so complacent that he got carried away. He thought that the people listening to him were still those lackeys who surrounded him all day long. So he only talked about his romantic anecdotes, such as which woman was beautiful, which woman was attractive, and all of them were unbearable to listen to. This place was filled with beautiful women, and this guy was talking excitedly. He even compared a few female guards, which immediately attracted a few angry glares from the female guards. If it weren't for Mayor and Rosa and not saying anything, this guy would definitely be beaten into a pig's head. You can ask them properly. Mayor couldn't listen anymore. A playboy completely gave up his depraved life. How could she get used to it? How could she tolerate it? If it weren't for knowing something useful from this guy's mouth, she would have already asked someone to kill this guy. She had already reached the limit of her endurance. Mayor and Rosa left, and Zhu Xiaodong immediately noticed that something was wrong. However, Mayor seemed to let these guards interrogate him carefully. He still had some hope in his heart. He knew that whether he could survive or not depended on whether he cooperated or not. There was no need for those guards to threaten him at all. He spoke more and more in detail. I really didn't expect that my adoptive father, who was awe-inspiring all his life, gave birth to such a prodigal son. Mayor was in a low mood today, so Wang Sheng had been accompanying her. Nestled in Wang Sheng's arms, Mayor had infinite emotions. That's normal. Aren't there a lot of people like this? Wang Sheng smiled. Back then, the first famous person I killed, the young master of the Dai family, Dai Huan, wasn't it the same? If it didn't die, what would Daigua be like now? Everyone in Daigua should be grateful to Wang Sheng. If it weren't for Wang Sheng killing Dai Huan early on, Dai Huan would be the one taking over Daigua in the name of Dai Huan's young master, and not his younger brother, Dai Xiao. With Dai Huan's prodigal ability, he was definitely better than Zhu Xiaodong. At that stage, Daigua might have been ruined by Dai Huan. Men are all cheap wretches. Mayor snorted coldly. After saying that, she felt that it was inappropriate. Wasn't she scolding Wang Sheng as well? However, just as she had this thought, Mayor thought of Song Yin and immediately felt wronged. Men were indeed cheap wretches, and Wang Sheng was no exception. That's right, Wang Sheng was in the wrong. So he couldn't blame Mayor for throwing a tantrum. He could only go along with Mayor's words. Mayor was also angry and didn't speak to Wang Sheng for a while. However, although she hated Wang Sheng, she didn't have any intention of getting up from Wang Sheng's arms. Didn't you want to know Zhu Xingxing's trump card from him? Wang Sheng waited for Mei-er's temper to improve before he followed along with Mei-er's words and asked, "What did you get from him? What he said is useless." Speaking of business, Mei-er shook her head in dissatisfaction. Zhu Xiaodong was a good-for-nothing wastrel. Even if Zhu Xingxing had a trump card, after understanding Zhu Xiaodong's character, he wouldn't leave anything good for him. It seemed like they could only give up. Didn't your adoptive father leave anything for him? Wang Sheng thought about it, and still felt that it was impossible. Zhu Xingxing already knew Zhu Xiaodong very well. However, even so, he didn't discipline Zhu Xiaodong. Instead, he allowed Zhu Xiaodong to indulge in debauchery. This was clearly not normal. Mei-er held the thick stack of papers that recorded Zhu Xiaodong's confession. She quickly flipped through them and shook her head. She casually stuffed them into Wang Sheng's hands and leaned comfortably in Wang Sheng's arms, enjoying the warmth of Wang Sheng's chest. Although this bad guy was also a playboy, despite his status, he only had himself, Rose, and Song Yin. He didn't even touch the long-legged female assassin who had delivered herself to his doorstep in Carefree City. Compared to Zhu Xiaodong, this bad guy was practically the best man in the world. If you don't believe me, take a look at all the men in the world. With Wang Sheng's status and wealth, which man didn't indulge in debauchery? Zhu Xingxing said he could guarantee that Zhu Xiaodong would enjoy wealth until he was 60 years old. Wang Sheng flipped through the papers very quickly. Very quickly, he found a sentence in the confession that was very strange and asked Mei-er about it. Chapter 1221. Foster father knew that his son was a good-for-nothing, so he didn't plan on letting him do anything but eat, drink, and be merry. Ever since Zhu Xingxing died, Mayor no longer hated him. Therefore, she addressed him as foster father even in front of Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng didn't mind it at all. A person who knew how to be grateful was a good match for him. This guy is only 25 or 26 years old, not much older than you. He still has a few decades left. How can he guarantee that? Wang Sheng cared about the time and nothing else. I guess foster father's idea was to make a fortune for his son by relying on his power. Mayer analyzed the meaning of this sentence from Zhu Xingxing's perspective. Foster father can guarantee that he can live for another few decades. He can definitely take care of his son while he's alive. Even if foster father dies, he can still leave a fortune for his son to squander. In your opinion, with Zhu Xingxing's body, can he live for another 30 years? Wang Sheng's understanding of Zhu Xingxing was definitely not as good as Mayer's. Therefore, he would definitely listen to Mayer's opinion in this regard. Mayer pondered for a while, then slowly shook her head. Foster father's body isn't very good, and his cultivation isn't very high either. If he could rest and take care of his health, he might have a chance to live a long life. Unfortunately, he's also in charge of an even more troublesome Yuland. Even if you don't kill him, I'm afraid he won't live for another 20 years. In other words, according to what he said, Zhu Xingxing has left enough fortune for Zhu Xiaodong to squander for at least a dozen years. Wang Sheng nodded and slowly calculated. With Baoqing Yu Tang's accumulation and the Yulands, this shouldn't be a problem, right? Obviously, whether it was the chain stores opened by Baoqing Yu Tang all over the country or the Yuland that was comparable to the territories of several vassal states, they could ensure that Zhu Xiaodong could live a luxurious life for a few decades without suffering any grievances. Of course, the prerequisite was that he didn't court death himself. This situation was not within Zhu Xingxing's plan. It won't be a problem for him to be a rich man. Mayer smiled. No matter how dissatisfied she was with Zhu Xingxing and his father, Mayer completely recognized Zhu Xingxing's business talent. Even a large part of Mayer's own methods were learned from Zhu Xingxing. She had never doubted this. It can even make him last longer. It won't be a problem for him to be rich until he dies. Then why did Zhu Xingxing say 60 years old? Wang Sheng was suspicious about this. What happens after 60 years old? Could it be that he was willing to let his son, his most beloved son, squander all his family's assets and live on the streets? You want an old man who's enjoyed life for 60 years to struggle for survival at the age of 60. Mayer closed her eyes and imagined the scene. Zhu Xingxing, who was as fat as a pig, squandered his last copper coin and lived on the streets. With his fat appearance, he probably couldn't even beg for food. Was this really what Zhu Xingxing wanted to see? Could it be that Zhu Xingxing had already calculated that his son would repent after the age of 60 and then pull himself together to earn a family business? Wang Sheng had a vague outline in his mind, but he still didn't think about it carefully. Of course, this kind of analysis also needed to involve Mayer and Rosa. It would be more fun if everyone played together. Rosa, tell me, if you had a useless son, what would you do? At home, Rosa was almost Mayer's attendant. Even in bed, she wished she could be Mayer's maid. At this kind of intimate moment, whether it was Wang Sheng or Mayer, they wouldn't avoid Rosa. Even Mayer would take the initiative to push Rosa into Wang Sheng's arms, because sometimes she couldn't deal with a bull like Wang Sheng alone. There's also my business. Rosa was serving not far away. Hearing this, she immediately laughed. I don't have such a useless son. What if you do? Mayer was also interested. She asked Rosa, you may not be able to take care of too many things after you die. What would you do? Then leave him a fortune that is enough for him to squander until he dies. Rosa was spending billions of gold coins every now and then. When she opened her mouth, it was enough for him to squander until he dies. She didn't care at all. Aren't you afraid that he will squander it all in the middle of his life? Mayer asked again. This was actually the question Wang Sheng had asked her before. Then leave him too. Rosa replied without hesitation. One in the open and one in the dark. Just as she said this, Rosa stopped. Mayer also instantly understood why Zhu Xingxing said to let Zhu Xiaodong enjoy a luxurious life until he was 60 years old. Obviously, there was still a fortune left for Zhu Xiaodong. It was his last capital to live, especially after experiencing a series of squandering at 60 years old. No matter how useless Zhu Xiaodong was, he should understand some principles, right? It was impossible for him to not grow up after experiencing so many things. Wouldn't that make him a real useless person? Although Zhu Xiaodong was useless, he wasn't useless to that extent, right? How do you leave it in the dark? Wang Sheng asked with a smile. This was the question that he had thought of but didn't say. It seemed to have a better effect when Rosa brought it up. Arrange for a loyal subordinate to watch over his life after I die. Only when he is in dire straits can I give it to him. Rosa didn't think too much and quickly answered. With Zhu Xingxing's suspicious personality, Mayer, who was raised by him since she was a child, wouldn't even be given a single cent in Baoqingyu Hall. Wang Sheng smiled and asked again, is there anyone else who can make him feel at ease enough to entrust his son to him? Isn't he afraid that this person won't give it to his son and will take the fortune for himself? Believe me, it is definitely not a small sum of money. Rosa was speechless. Even Mayer was the same and fell into silence. Wang Sheng was speaking the truth. If he didn't even trust Mayer, his foster daughter, how could Zhu Xingxing entrust his entire family's fortune to a trusted subordinate? Didn't those old shopkeepers immediately throw Zhu Xiaodong to Mayer when they saw that things weren't going well? What kind of person can be truly trusted by Zhu Xingxing? Wang Sheng continued the previous question and said, I'm afraid there isn't anyone. The two women nodded and admitted this point. But Zhu Xingxing wants to leave some fortune for his son to live a rich life. Wang Sheng thought about it for a moment before finally voicing his opinion. I believe that this inheritance must be on Zhu Xiaodong himself. Zhu Xingxing will only truly trust his biological son. Chapter 1222. On Zhu Xiaodong's body. Mayer and Rosa's eyes immediately widened. This deduction was very possible. The two girls were instantly excited. Mei immediately sat up from Wang Sheng's arms and was about to ask someone to search Zhu Xiaodong's body. Wang Sheng hugged Mei Er's slender waist and stopped her from leaving his arms. He asked with a smile, Where are you going? Get someone to search him. Mei did not hide her intentions and answered quickly. He was captured by the Shi family. Who knows how many times they've searched him along the way? How could he have left anything that you could find? Wang Sheng couldn't help but remind her with a bitter smile. Don't think that the Shi family is stupid. Trust me, his clothes don't fit him very well. He must have been cleaned and thrown a random piece of clothing for him to wear. Mayer and Rosa thought about it and agreed. If the person was in their hands and they were going to give him away, wouldn't they have to first search his mouth for something useful? Putting themselves in his shoes, the Shi family would definitely have the same idea. Shouldn't they rob Zhu Xingxing's son? Understanding this, the two girls immediately felt a little dispirited. The gap from hope to disappointment was very obvious. It was as if the two girls could not lift their spirits at that moment. Don't be so disappointed. Seeing this, Wang Sheng could only comfort them. Think about it. If it were you, would you put the wealth that your son could use for his retirement and let someone take it away at any time? This logic was very obvious and could be easily understood. However, in a situation like this, even smart people like Mayer and Rosa would sometimes make mistakes. Think about it again. Other than his own body, what else could he have taken that no one else could know? Wang Sheng asked the two girls, especially Mayer, you've been in contact with Zhu Xingxing for a long time. Did Zhu Xingxing arrange any extremely secretive places that only Zhu Xiaodong knows about? Mayer was lost in her memories. After a while, she shook her head and said, Baoqingyu Tang, and those places are definitely out of the question. They have completely abandoned them. It seems like they have no intention of coming back. It might be possible in other places. Could it be in the Shanyu Kingdom? This possibility was very high, but at the same time, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to get anything out of Zhu Xiaodong. Again, the Shi family wasn't stupid. Didn't they know to interrogate Zhu Xiaodong about the possible hiding place of the treasure? However, what if the Sher family was careless? Mayer winked at Rosa. Rosa stood up and went out to make arrangements with a smile. She believed that with Zhu Xiaodong's stubborn appearance, it wouldn't be long before his mouth was pried open. Maybe you guys will be disappointed. Wang Sheng saw Rosa's action, but he didn't stop Rosa. After Rosa left, he hugged Mei-er and laid down, letting Mei-er lie in his arms. Let's ask first. Mei-er, it was also doubtful, but she was still full of anticipation. Wang Sheng hugged Mei-er's delicate body, feeling the softness of Mei-er's body. However, his mind had already flown to Zhu Xiaodong. If Zhu Xingxing really arranged some family assets for him to make a comeback, where would it be the safest to put them? He wouldn't have to worry about them being stolen, and he could guarantee that Zhu Xiaodong would definitely get them. Mei-er was also pondering, but after thinking for a while, Mei-er felt that it was meaningless. To put it bluntly, this was like a treasure hunt. Mei-er only enjoyed the process, but she wasn't really looking forward to the real result. Baoqing Yutang was indeed rich, but in front of Li Zhanfang, it was just a small supermarket. It wasn't worth Mei-er's attention. If she could smoothly find the clues and those things, it would be fun. If she couldn't find them, Mei-er wouldn't feel too disappointed. From the beginning, Wang Sheng wanted Zhu Xiaodong's head. This had never changed. Even if Wang Sheng let Mei-er deal with Zhu Xiaodong, Mei-er wouldn't change this. However, on the contrary, Mei-er would rather Zhu Xiaodong die in her hands and not someone else. After a long time, Rosa came back. Seeing the two's intimate appearance, she couldn't help but pout. I'm the only one who's tired. You guys are good. I guess you didn't get anything useful out of him. Wang Sheng smiled and stretched out his hand to Rosa. Rosa gently placed her hand into Wang Sheng's and obediently sat beside Wang Sheng. It's really annoying. That guy is really an idiot. Speaking of Zhu Xiaodong, Rosa couldn't stand it anymore. If my future child is going to be like him, I'd rather kill him myself and let him be such a disgrace. If you can't get anything out of him, then forget it. Mei-er had thought it through. So what if she could find him? So what if she couldn't? Would it affect her and Wang Sheng? She simply ordered Rosa. Give him some good food, then send him on his way. Send his head to the villagers' graves in the suburbs. At this moment, Mei-er had returned to the decisive and murderous princess of Ning Kingdom. She was no longer Zhu Xingxing's adopted daughter and Zhu Xiaodong's nominal sister. Rosa nodded. Since Mei-er had spoken, she must carry it out. After nodding, Rosa looked at Wang Sheng again. Why do you think Zhu Xingxing said 60 years old? Wang Sheng was still pondering. Has he calculated that his son can only be rich until 60 years old? It's not 50 years old, nor is it 70 years old, but 60 years old? Maybe when that idiot is 60 years old, the things he left behind will automatically appear in front of him. Rosa saw that Wang Sheng was still pondering, so she answered Wang Sheng's question subconsciously. As soon as Rosa's voice fell, Wang Sheng's eyes suddenly lit up. Mei-er also noticed that Wang Sheng's body suddenly became stiff. She hurriedly sat up and looked at Wang Sheng with surprise. I think I know. Wang Sheng smiled. Say it quickly. Wang Sheng said he knew, but he just didn't continue. Mei-er couldn't help but clench her small fist and hit Wang Sheng's chest a few times, urging him anxiously. Mei-er, do you remember, since childhood, has your nominal brother ever been injured? Wang Sheng asked Mei-er, have you ever repaired anything on your body? Injured? Mei-er frowned and carefully recalled. After a while, she suddenly remembered something and nodded with certainty. He was injured once. When he was 15 or 16 years old, he went out to steal beauties. I don't know how many times he was slapped by an expert. His teeth had been repaired and changed, right? Wang Sheng's face showed a smile again. I think I know where the family's treasures are hidden. Mei-er and Rosa also thought of it. The two girls stood up together, their faces full of surprise. Chapter 1223. Why the teeth? Because the teeth would wear out. This was especially true for the repaired dentures. Because of this, one could accurately calculate the time when the dentures would wear out. When one was 60 years old, the outer surface of the dentures would be worn off, revealing the storage ring or other similar things inside. The storage ring required the activation of spirit energy to be used. However, if it was wrapped in a material that could isolate spirit energy and there was no array formation, no one would be able to discover the secret inside. Unless it was worn out over time, the outer protective layer would be worn off, revealing the storage stone inside. By then, as long as Zhu Xiaodong cultivated and used his spirit energy, he would be able to discover it. Even if he squandered like Zhu Xiaodong, after 60 years of living, would he still squander like before? After discovering this fortune, he would definitely spend it carefully. If he was careful, it would be enough for him to use until he died. This was Zhu Xingxing's wishful thinking. For this useless son, Zhu Xingxing had put in a lot of effort and made such a thorough arrangement. Parents in the world should be concerned about their children. There was no need for Wang Sheng and Mei to do it themselves. Rosa randomly found a few guards and controlled Zhu Xiaodong to remove the denture in his mouth. After cleaning it, she brought it to Wang Sheng and Mei. At this point, Zhu Xiaodong's fate was completely decided. Mei still planned to give him a few good meals before sending him on his way. Regarding this, neither Wang Sheng nor Rosa objected. In fact, when he ordered the massacre of the villagers in those villages, his head was destined to be placed in front of those villagers' graves. Would Mei go against Wang Sheng because of Zhu Xiaodong? Or would Mei let Zhu Xiaodong off because of Zhu Xingxing's upbringing? Even Zhu Xingxing's own head did not escape the fate of being placed in front of the villagers' graves. What did Zhu Xiaodong do? Being able to give him a few good meals before he died and not become a starving ghost, this was already an exceptional kindness from Mei. It was a denture that looked good, and it was sculpted to the point that it was comparable to some of the craftsmanship on Earth. Wang Sheng looked at it for a while before passing it to Mei. "Look, what material is this?" Wang Sheng asked Mei. The material of the dentures was very good. They seemed to be made of some kind of bone, but the texture was very fine and smooth. Even if one licked them with the tongue, there would not be a feeling of jerkiness. If one did not pay attention, one would think that they were real teeth. Mei looked at it for a while and could only confirm that it was some kind of bone. She then handed it to Rosa. Rosa had been in the worry-free city for more than 10 years. She was experienced and knowledgeable, so she might be able to recognize him. This is carved from the ivory of an ice-field giant elephant. Rosa indeed knew about it. She took it and looked at it for a while before returning it to Wang Sheng. She was the first to receive it, even before Wang Sheng and Mei, so she had already recognized the material. This kind of ivory is very hard, and one of its characteristics is that it can isolate spiritual energy. Everything was as Wang Sheng had guessed, almost without the slightest error. Mei and Rosa were filled with admiration for him. Their master was able to traverse the lands of despair when he was still a nobody, and it was definitely not a fluke. His observation and deduction skills were simply astounding. An elephant's molars would gradually wear out during the process of eating. Normally, it would take about 20 years for one set of molars to wear out. Thinking about it, the material of this denture should be the molars of an ice-field giant elephant. Mei, do you want to polish it yourself? Wang Sheng handed the denture back to Mei. Only you, Mei, are qualified to inherit Zhu Xingxing's things. Mei smiled and shook her head. She returned the denture to Wang Sheng. Master, you can do it. This thing was taken from that guy's mouth. As she spoke, she made a disgusted expression. Wang Sheng smiled in understanding. He asked Rosa to prepare a grindstone for him. Then, he took the denture and started to polish the crown. Since this thing was designed by Zhu Xingxing, it was better not to destroy it violently. According to his original design, he would just have to polish the crown bit by bit. It didn't take long before a layer of the crown was removed. After a while, Wang Sheng immediately sensed the aura inside the denture, which was similar to that of a storage ring. It was definitely not a storage ring. However, the material was the same, and the function was the same. It could also store some things. However, because of the size, the storage stone inside was very small, so the space was very cramped. But for a rolled-up animal skin scroll, this space was more than enough. Apart from this animal skin scroll, there were only a few hundred gold coins. If he used it sparingly, these few hundred gold coins would definitely be able to support him for a long time. Wang Xing didn't even open the animal skin scroll. He directly handed it to Mei Er. Mei Er and Wang Xing didn't treat each other as outsiders. She pulled Wang Xing and Rosa and excitedly unfolded the animal skin scroll on the table. The three of them saw a map. If Wang Xing had to evaluate it, he would say that it was a very poor map. It had almost all the common problems of maps before he came to this world. There was no correct scale. It was just a rough direction. The distance and height couldn't be seen. Then, there was a big X drawn at a certain place. Obviously, that was the destination. Zhu Xingxing actually left a treasure map for his son. Wang Xing immediately burst out laughing. Look at him. Even if he was given a treasure map, he probably wouldn't be able to find the destination. Wouldn't it be too difficult for Zhu Xiaodong to search for such a secretive thing like treasure hunting by himself? He can bring his subordinates along. Rosa evaluated seriously. Those barbarian experts are still very loyal. They are the god's messengers. That's true. Wang Xing nodded. If he can really be the god's messenger forever, then it definitely won't be a problem. No matter how much he squanders, he will still be rich and powerful. But why does Zhu Xingxing think that his idiot son can survive until then when he is surrounded by the feudal lords? Even Zhu Xingxing himself doesn't have the confidence. Maybe he didn't leave it for that idiot, but he hoped that he could give birth to a few capable grandchildren. Mei Er also shook her head. Zhu Xiaodong didn't have the ability to find it. If he cooperated with others, the moment he took out the map would be the moment Zhu Xiaodong died. Maybe what Mei Er said was the real Zhu Xingxing's idea. Who knew? Interesting, this treasure is actually hidden overseas. Wang Xing looked carefully at the map again and found some clues. Interesting. After coming to this world for so many years, Wang Xing had some understanding of the various countries. The kingdom of Qiu and the kingdom of Tang were by the sea. The east side of the land of Yushan was also by the sea. It wasn't strange to live off the mountains and the sea, but they were all near the sea. But the mark on this map, no matter how inaccurate the scale was, the location of the treasure was at least more than 1,000 miles away from the sea. In this era, there were already people playing long-distance sea voyages. Chapter 1224. Mei Er, you've seen a lot. How far can the fishermen from Qiu country and Tang country go out to sea? Wang Xing's understanding might not be comprehensive enough. Wang Xing sincerely asked Mei Er for advice. Rosa, have you seen any experts who have gone out to sea before? How far can they go? Ordinary fishermen can only go 100 to 200 miles at most. When Mei Er was the young master of Baoqing Yutang, she had been to many countries. She also had a good understanding of the Qiu country and Tang country, so she answered without hesitation. The experts of Worry-Free City rarely go out to sea. Rosa also followed up after Mei Er answered. There were a few who came back alive. Every time, they would rather die than go out to sea again. Why? Wang Xing asked in confusion. Is it because there are no good ships, or are they afraid of the wind and waves? The ships are definitely not good. Mei Er knew what Wang Xing was thinking and quickly replied. They can't withstand the wind and waves. However, the main reason is because of the demonic beasts. Demonic beasts? Wang Xing was used to hearing about great voyages on Earth. He had also experienced similar training, but it was all about driving ships and submarines. He had never considered the possibility of animals. After listening to Mei Er's words, he then realized that he was in an origin spirit world filled with demonic beasts. Without any further reminders from Mei Er and Rosa, Wang Xing immediately understood the whole story. Even the demonic beasts on land could grow as ferocious as those in the land of Thousand Despair. One could imagine how terrifying the demonic beasts in the sea were. In the sea on Earth, because of the existence of buoyancy, there was no need for the legs to support the weight of the body. The largest sea animal could reach up to 10 meters long, such as the blue whale. This was something that humans had observed and could confirm. As for the so-called limitless mollusks, such as the king octopus, the king cuttlefish, and the likes, it was said that they could grow to a terrifying size. The kraken was the legendary giant mollusk, but it was just a Nordic legend. Perhaps the ancients had seen it, but no one could prove it. That was still on Earth. In this spirit world, there was the existence of spiritual energy. Who knew what the terrifying creatures in the ocean could grow to? Was the Herculean ape king big enough? At most, it was a tiny dot in the sea. Wang Sheng could completely understand why the experts of this world did not venture out to the distant seas. It was all too normal. No matter how powerful an expert was, if they encountered a blue whale-sized demonic beast on the sea, what other possibility was there other than death? How did Zhu Xingxing hide the treasure so far out at sea? Rosa and Meyer also understood why Wang Sheng had asked that question. They looked at the markings on the map in surprise. How did Zhu Xingxing do it without a long-distance ship or a shipping route? It was simply unbelievable. Flying mounts. Wang Sheng had no choice but to remind the two girls. Even if the water route was impassable, didn't Zhu Xingxing still have flying mounts? Flying in the air, no matter how powerful the sea demonic beast was, what could it do? The two girls were stunned for a moment and immediately felt relieved. That's right. Since there were flying mounts that could carry people, crossing hundreds of miles of the sea shouldn't be a problem. Something's not right. Meyer suddenly thought of something and frowned. Even if there are flying mounts, they would need to rest after flying for hundreds of miles. They can't fly over this distance. The news about flying mounts was sent over by the Grand Master of the Old Supreme Lord Temple. Ever since the old shopkeepers had surrendered with a dozen flying mounts, the Temple of the Old Lord had accepted them. Naturally, he had also learned some of the characteristics of flying mounts from the mouths of the old berserker beast tamers. The flying mounts controlled by the Shangyue Kingdom were all 6th to 7th degree realm flying demonic beasts. There were 3 types, all of which were birds. The furthest one could fly was at most 500 miles. They had to rest for at least a quarter of an hour before they could continue to fly. It was said that the furthest one was a 7th degree realm flying demonic beast. The furthest it flew was 900 miles with 1 beast tamer on its back. If it carried a few more people, the distance would be shortened. Demonic beasts had cultivation too. Heavy snow had never had such a problem. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist rode on heavy snow. Every time they had a good time, they could fly more than 1,000 miles. They despised these flying demonic beasts. There are a few ways. Wang Sheng stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before replying. Bring enough planks or bamboo with you in your storage ring. When you get tired of flying, take them out and assemble a boat or raft on the surface of the ocean. If you bring a lot of them, you'll definitely be able to rest on them. After saying that, Wang Sheng saw Meyer and Rosa looking at him as if he was a monster. He couldn't help but look left and right. There didn't seem to be anything strange about him. He couldn't help but ask, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Old master." The way Wang Sheng looked left and right made Meyer and Rosa burst out laughing. Meyer laughed so hard that she couldn't speak. It was Rosa who held back her laughter and replied to Wang Sheng. Who knows what unknown dangers there are in the vast sea? Those fishermen who were lucky enough to survive said that as long as they go out to sea for more than 100 miles, there will be a terrifying sea demon appearing. We don't know where they are hiding in the water. Old master, before your small boat or raft is assembled, you'll have to face the attack of one or a group of fierce sea demons. Rosa continued, Old master, you may be able to hold your breath, but the aura of those flying demonic beasts is definitely the best target to attract those sea demons. Flying low will be troublesome. If you land on the sea, you will really be dead. Yes, Meyer continued. No matter how good and sturdy a ship is, it will not be able to withstand a single blow from those sea demons. It is said that a fisherman once saw a huge tentacle that was over 2,000 feet long on the surface of the sea, with a huge crab that was at least 100 feet in circumference wrapped around it. When the tentacle slammed into the water, the fishing boat that was 10 miles away from them was nearly capsized by the waves. Even flying mounts won't work. Wang Sheng looked at the average-looking map and racked his brains to come up with something. After a while, Rosa saw Wang Sheng pondering and couldn't help but say, "Old master, why don't I interrogate Zhu Xiaodong again? Maybe Zhu Xingxing told him about this map before. There might be other secrets in it." "No need." Wang Sheng shook his head. "If he uses this to exchange for his life, it will be difficult for Meyer." Turning to look at Meyer, Wang Sheng gave her a reassuring look. "Don't worry, I have a way. If worst comes to worst, I'll just look for heavy snow. 1 or 2,000 miles is nothing to heavy snow." Chapter 1225. A tentacle was more than 200 zhang long, so it was at least 700 meters long. Normally, a creature with tentacles would have more than one tentacle. If it was an octopus, cuttlefish, or squid with 80 or 90 tentacles, even an aircraft carrier from Earth would have a headache. This was not the soft tentacles of those fellows from Earth, but rather a terrifying creature with spiritual energy attacks. A single one of them could destroy an aircraft carrier. It was not a problem at all. Wang Xing did not doubt that Mei Er and Rosa were lying. In this source spirit world, anything was possible. Just like Wang Sheng's previous judgment, even the Ape King could grow to this size, so it was normal for the sea's demonic beasts to grow to several hundred zhang in size. Could it be that he could only use heavy snow? While Wang Sheng was pondering with a frown, Meyer nudged Wang Sheng and said with a smile, "Master, why are you thinking about this? It is just a little bit of money that Zhu Xingxing left for his worthless son to live on. Would Master still care about this little bit of property?" Wang Sheng was stunned. "That's right. Zhu Xingxing and Bao Qing Yu Tang calculated it. Wouldn't it be worth more than 1 billion gold coins? At most, it would be 2 billion gold coins, and then it would be 5 billion gold coins. Could Zhu Xingxing bury 5 billion gold coins in the sea 1 or 2,000 li away? It was obviously impossible. Just as Meyer had said, it was just enough for Zhu Xiaodong to live a luxurious life. It was not worth thinking too much about. So what if he got it? So what if he didn't? This was because the Shi family was thorough, so they directly captured Zhu Xiaodong and brought him to him. If the Shi family had directly brought Zhu Xiaodong's head over, who would have thought that Zhu Xingxing still had this kind of card? At that time, everyone would definitely send Zhu Xiaodong's head to the graves of the villagers as an offering, and then let it be gnawed on by wild beasts. That false tooth might not be discovered for hundreds or thousands of years. It was an unexpected fortune to begin with. If it was convenient for him, he could take it. If it was not convenient for him, he could just leave it there and ignore it. It would not affect him, Meyer, and Rosa at all. Why should he think about it over and over again because of this picture? Wang Xing shook his head with a smile. It was still curiosity. After all, he wasn't as open-minded as old Taoist Ling Su. He was too greedy. Meyer is right. I was too greedy. After thinking it through, Wang Xing admitted his mistake without hesitation. That's true. Zhu Xingxing prepared some money to save his life on an isolated island. It's really not worth it for us to worry about. It's my fortune to get it, and my fate to lose it. Meyer and Rosa were also very happy, especially when they heard Wang Sheng's last words. It's my fortune to get it, and my fate to lose it. They especially felt that there was an indescribable feeling in it. While they were carefully evaluating these words, Wang Sheng slapped his thigh. "I'm such a fool." Wang Sheng slapped his thigh so loudly that even the beautiful guards outside the door rushed in without hesitation. They only left after seeing that the three of them were fine. 2 pairs of beautiful eyes immediately stared at Wang Sheng. The 2 women were quite puzzled. Why did he say that about them? Just now, Wang Sheng's own words reminded Wang Sheng. Zhu Xingxing's hidden treasure was thrown on an isolated island overseas. He couldn't have left it at the bottom of the sea. With Zhu Xiaodong's ability, would he dare to go to the bottom of the sea to retrieve the treasure? The reason why he slapped his thigh was because Wang Sheng omitted a little. Island. Although there are indeed many unbelievably powerful creatures in the ocean and many unbelievably huge sea monsters, these are all based on a very important foundation. That is, they must be in the deep sea. Only in the deep sea can there be space for such huge creatures to survive. It is obviously impossible in the shallow sea. Not to mention big octopuses and squids. If you let a blue whale play in shallow sea, it will end up stranded if it is not careful. For sea creatures, it didn't matter how strong they were. As long as they were stranded, only death awaited them. There was no other possibility. Therefore, big guys, fierce guys, must be in the deep sea, not in the shallow sea. In such a huge ocean, there must be the existence of islands. It's good if there are islands. At least half of the islands in the ocean must be surrounded by a large area of shallow sea. There are islands with cliffs on the sea, but there will not be many. If there are a few islands along the way, it will be enough for the flying beast to land and rest. How strong could the beast be on the islands? No matter how strong they are still on land. Wang Sheng's mantra of 9 words formula can completely guarantee the safety of himself and the flying beasts. If he added the old Taoist Ling Su, it can basically be said to be foolproof. The only problem is that the treasure map is too simple, and there is no indication of the location of the island. Even if they know that they may be able to rest midway, if they really want to find the location of the island bit by bit, it will probably take a few months or even a few years to find the edge of the treasure island. Will Zhu Xingxing leave such an incomplete treasure map for Zhu Xiaodong? That is obviously impossible. How can his son have this ability? Think of this method. Wang Sheng believed that Zhu Xingxing must have reminded Zhu Xiaodong about this treasure map when there are no outsiders. Maybe he did not tell Zhu Xiaodong that this is a treasure map, but Zhu Xiaodong might know what to do after getting the map. Out was that idiot's memory. Wang Sheng asked Meyer, "Is he a genius with a photographic memory?" Him? Meyer did not look down on Zhu Xiaodong. With a face full of contempt, she said, "Even 100 of him can't compare to any of Uncle Lu's shopkeepers." Fine, that is an idiot. Obviously, there will be no sea map or island distribution map in his memory. Then, the map that Zhu Xingxing left for Zhu Xiaodong must have a secret. Wang Sheng bent down and began to carefully search along the animal skin roll bit by bit. Meyer and Rosa did not know what Wang Sheng found, but they were curious. They carefully stared at Wang Sheng's hands, waiting to see what Wang Sheng found. While searching, Wang Sheng smiled. His hands rested on the animal skin scroll several times at several points. After feeling the whole thing, Wang Sheng finally smiled. "I know." Meyer snatched the beast skin scroll and began to carefully search through it. After a while, she raised her head with a face full of doubt. She also searched, but did not find anything. Rose did not want to be left behind. After Meyer touched it once, she did the same. However, she found nothing either. "Master, what did you find?" Meyer asked anxiously. "Try here, here, and here." Wang Sheng pointed at several places for the 2 girls, indicating that they should search. Chapter 12:26. The 2 women followed Wang Sheng's finger and searched carefully, but they still didn't find anything wrong. But since Wang Sheng had specifically pointed it out, the 2 women didn't give up. After carefully touching the other places around them, they finally found something wrong. The leather in these places is not tanned well. It's slightly uneven. Rosa said her judgment. This situation was too normal. As long as it was tanned, no one could guarantee that it would be absolutely flat. How exquisite would the leather for drawing be? There are also unevenness in other places. "Master, look here." Meyer took Wang Sheng's big hand with her small hand and touched several other places on the map. Those places were indeed a little uneven, but from the map, they were all on land, not in the sea. And the places that Wang Sheng had just pointed out were all in the sea. Don't you think that if we string these slightly thicker places together, it will actually be a very good route? Wang Sheng revealed the mystery with a smile. "We can go all the way from here to the place where the treasure is hidden." The 2 women were smart people. After Wang Sheng's guidance, they explored again and immediately found that it was true. If every thicker part was an island, then this chain would be a route. Although it would be a little detour, the 2 neighboring islands would not be too far away from each other. It just so happened to be 400 to 500 kilometers away from each other. There would be no problem at all if the flying demon beasts flew all the way. The powerful sea monsters are in the deep sea, and the islands are surrounded by the shallow sea. The two women still had some doubts, but Wang Sheng's words made them completely let go of all their doubts. Sure enough, he was an old fox. This guy must have taught Zhu Xiaodong something when he was young. He could think of such a simple truth when he saw such a map. But if others got this map, they would definitely be at their wits' end. Just a route across the sea for 1,000 or 2,000 miles was enough to worry people to death. To put it bluntly, even if he threw the gold coins on the island and left them in the open, others would only be able to look at them and drool. There was no way for them to get it. Say, for someone as smart as Zhu Xingxing, wouldn't it be better if he spent his time educating his son instead of arranging these things? Wang Sheng was very happy to have solved the riddle. The two women shared the same bed, so there was no need for him to say anything. He just sighed and said, "Bao Qing Yu Tang, if you do well, you don't have to worry about money. If you want power, buy a small title first, then slowly build a small territory to play with. Isn't that better than being the enemy of the whole world? Why bother?" Sigh. Mayer also shook her head. Just as Wang Sheng had said, if one wanted glory and wealth, it was enough to run Bao Qing Yutang well. However, he just had to play such a big game like Mountain Leapland. He was throwing his entire family's life into it. The human heart is still not enough. In the future, if Li Zhenfang plays well in the capital, then just issue gold notes and loans to earn interest. There's no need to think about other things. Wang Sheng reminded Mayer, your parents are still around, so there's no need to think too much about it. To put it bluntly, if one day your parents are no longer around and a new emperor is appointed, all you have to do is guard Li Zhenlane, and no one will be able to do anything to you. If they dare to touch you, immediately make them poor. Mayer now knew the terrifying power hidden under the gold notes of Li Zhenfang, so she agreed with Wang Sheng's words. As long as she didn't make the same mistake as Zhu Xingxing in the future, she really didn't have to worry about anything else. The treasure map left behind by Zhu Xingxing had been found, and the secret of the map had also been discovered. The method of hiding the treasure had also been deduced by Wang Sheng. Following this, the three of them lost interest in solving the riddle. Zhu Xingxing's meager wealth was really not worth it for any of them to be tempted. Not to mention Mayer. Rosa was also an absolute high-ranking official in charge of Dream Workshop and Runzi Workshop. She was a domineering female CEO, and the amount of gold coins that passed through her hands was in the hundreds of millions. Back when Baoqing Yutang's snow sugar and refined salt business was at its peak, it only earned 200 million gold coins a year. How could the female CEO care about Baoqing Yutang's meager reserves? Return this map and the false teeth to Zhu Xiaodong. Wang Sheng casually threw the map to Mayer. Mayer didn't stand on ceremony. She reached out and caught the map. When you send him on his way, burn it for him. Just as Wang Sheng had expected, Zhu Xiaodong treated the map like it was a treasure. When no one was around, he even secretly touched the map. Everything was as Wang Sheng had guessed. 3 days later, after Zhu Xiaodong ate and drank to his heart's content, he casually drank a glass of wine and closed his eyes quietly with the treasure map in his arms. Then, Zhu Xiaodong's head was sent to the graves of the villagers in the 4 villages in the suburbs of the capital. His headless body was cremated together with the map, and his ashes were scattered into the moat of the capital. From then on, Zhu Xiaodong disappeared from the world. Wang Sheng's family of 3 did what they should do as if nothing had happened. Mayer and Rosa continued to manage the business, while Wang Sheng continued to carve the concentric balls. 2 months passed by in a flash. The outside world was still in chaos, and the capital was still calm. People enjoyed what they had to enjoy and worked hard when they had to. It seemed that the world had never changed. However, Wang Sheng had already completed 2 concentric balls. The White Lotus Blossom's 1-heart ghostly crafting ball had already been delivered to the Empress's desk. The original White Jade 1-heart ghostly crafting ball had also been exchanged and placed in Qianxing Yuan's inner courtyard. It was marked with a price of 10 million gold coins, and it would become the shop's treasure. Song Yan's peony-blossoming ghost craft ball had also been completed, but it was in Wang Sheng's storage ring. He didn't plan to let Mayer send it over, nor did he plan to let the elders of the kingdom of Song bring it back. The old Taoist had also completed a rosa-blossoming ghost craft ball in the process of carving with Wang Sheng. Counting on his fingers, the two of them had been carving for more than half a year, especially Wang Sheng, who had been carving for almost 10 months. In total, Wang Sheng had completed 5, and the old Taoist had completed 2. It was definitely enough to temper their temperament. The map of the core of the Lands of Thousand Despair would only be sold in a few months, and only then would the show begin. Wang Sheng wasn't in a hurry to cultivate, and the two of them suddenly seemed to have nothing to do. Once they had nothing to do, Wang Sheng became the most hated person in the world. Mayer and Rosa had a lot of things to do every day. She was so busy that she didn't have the time to accompany Wang Sheng all day. There were many beauties in the residence, and they were all willing to serve Wang Sheng. However, Wang Sheng wouldn't make a mistake in this aspect. He didn't cultivate, and when he was free, he could only stay in the kitchen and give pointers to a few chefs. Master, if you really have nothing to do, then go out and relax. After a few days, even Mayer couldn't stand it anymore. Didn't the Elder Supreme Lord Temple take away those flying demonic beasts? Master, go play with them in the Elder Supreme Lord Temple. If you really can't do it, then go look for Bao Qing Yu Tang's hidden treasures. Chapter 1227. Well, if he was really bored, it would be good to find a toy. However, flying demonic beasts were no longer new, so it was no longer interesting. Whether it was Wang Sheng or old Taoist Ling Su. After playing that exciting game with heavy snow in the core of the place of Thousand Despair, the two of them were no longer interested in these ordinary flying demonic beasts. In the eyes of others, the precious things were worthless in the eyes of Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. How could a small demonic beast that could not even fly 1,000 or 2,000 miles be as powerful as heavy snow, who carried the two of them for thousands of miles and performed extreme parachute jumps at an altitude of 30,000 meters? However, Mayer reminded Wang Sheng that since there was nothing else fun to do, they should look for Bao Qing Yu Tang's treasures and treat it as a way to relieve their boredom. When she mentioned it to the old Taoist nodded in agreement without hesitation. The world was so big. How many things had people not seen or heard of? No matter how high the old Taoist cultivation was, it was impossible for him to see everything in the world. Everyone had only heard of how powerful the demonic beasts in the sea were, but they had never seen them. This was a good opportunity to see the terrifying demonic beasts in the sea. It might be a great reference for their own cultivation. When do you plan to start cultivating again? The old Taoist knew about Wang Sheng's current situation. Ever since Wang Sheng returned to the capital, Wang Sheng had not taken the initiative to cultivate. If he really wanted to talk about cultivation, it would be when he had sex with Mayer and naturally entered the state of dual cultivation. However, it was the Tao sex meditation technique to observe emptiness, not the scripture of Taoism. Wang Sheng had already thought about it, so he told the old Taoist Ling Su the answer when the aura on the long sword is stimulated. Although Wang Sheng did not take the initiative to cultivate now, this natural replenishment allowed all parts of his body to be fully nourished by the spiritual energy. Although taking the initiative to cultivate could improve quickly, the spiritual energy moved along the route of the acupuncture points. Most of the spiritual energy was concentrated in the acupuncture points, so the rest of the body could not be taken care of. It was true that the concentration of spiritual energy in the acupuncture points was very beneficial for attack, defense, or cultivation, but what was the foundation? The foundation of cultivation was still one's own body. Different parts of the body were strong and different parts were weak. When one reached the legendary realm, the gap between the strong and the weak would increase to a terrifying extent. Moreover, after reaching the legendary realm, according to the old Taoist, the body could almost automatically cultivate, and the spiritual energy would automatically circulate according to the route of the cultivation method. The difficulty could be imagined if one wanted to make up for the rest of the body. On the other hand, at Wang Sheng's current level, he decisively put down everything and took the initiative to cultivate, allowing the spiritual qi to nourish every part of his body. The effect was many times better. In Wang Sheng's words, sharpening the axe would not delay the work of cutting firewood. With a good foundation, there was no need to worry about the speed of cultivation in the future. Those fellows who desperately cultivated were all fools, including old Taoist Ling, Su, and the three great consecrators. If the old Taoist had your knowledge back then, he would not be in this realm now. The old Taoist said angrily to Wang Sheng, "I can go to the sea and see how powerful the powerful sea demons are." Wang Sheng and the old Taoist chatted as they walked out of the capital. "Old Taoist, what realm do you think the powerful sea demons are at?" With the Gan family taking out hundreds of millions of gold coins a few months ago as a lesson, no one in the capital dared to follow Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su. The two of them walked leisurely. There are definitely people like the old Taoist. The old Taoist Ling Su said confidently, "The sea is different from a land. I've asked the Laojun Temple to find out more about it. It's unimaginable. I think there should be people who are more powerful than you, old Taoist." Wang Sheng was very sure. According to the laws on Earth, the horror in the sea was not something that the animals on land could imagine. Then we can see what a higher realm is like. The old Taoist did not look afraid at all, only curious. "Heh heh heh." Wang Sheng did not say much. Instead, he and the old Taoist priest laughed in unison. Both of them had lawless temperaments. This time, they might really be able to meet some valiant fellows to broaden their horizons. In the Laojun Temple, the old Taoist and Wang Sheng could be said to be the two people with the highest seniority in the world. If the two of them wanted to go out together and bring along 4 flying demon beasts, no one in the Laojun Temple would object. However, there were people who kept shaking their heads and refused to allow it. "Honorable guests, it's not that we don't know how to appreciate your kindness. It's just that these beasts are not easy to handle. Unless we control them, they won't let anyone else ride them easily." When a few old barbarian beast tamers heard that Wang Sheng and the old Taoists were going to take away 4 flying demon beasts without their beast tamers, they were scared out of their wits and kowtowed to the two of them. This batch of old beast tamers had been brought back by the old shopkeepers of Baoqingyu Hall. They hadn't been completely brainwashed, and they were also very smart. How could they not know how terrifying the Laojun Temple was after they had been fighting against the Laojun Temple for so long? Therefore, after being taken in by the Laojun Temple, they had been behaving themselves. They did what they were told and taught what they were told. How could these old beast tamers not know how important Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su were to the Laojun Temple after staying there for almost 5 months? They were scared to death when they heard the news. "Please wait for 2 more months, patriarchs. We are teaching a few immortals from the Laojun Temple to control these demon beasts. When they are proficient in controlling them, we will invite you out." These old barbarians knew that the people from the Laojun Temple would not trust them to control the flying demon beasts to take the two of them away. Therefore, they took the initiative to propose a solution. These days, the Laojun Temple had been sending people to learn the beast tamers' techniques. In another 2 months, a few smart disciples would be proficient in controlling the demon beasts. By then, no one would suspect anything if the disciples of the Laojun Temple took the two of them out, right? Not to mention these old beast tamers. Even a few old Taoist Ling Su from the Qing generation were trying to persuade them with a bitter smile. It was really not an ordinary risk for the two of them to go out without their beast tamers. While they were arguing, the Grand Abbey Dean rushed over after hearing the news. After understanding the reason, he said nothing but nodded with a bitter smile. "Patriarchs and elders, please be careful. The sea is different from the land. If there is any danger, turn back immediately." Everyone was stunned. Did the Grand Abbey Dean agree? Was the Grand Abbey Dean not worried about the safety of the patriarchs? "You guys," old Taoist Ling Su said in an exasperated tone. He laughed and scolded the Taoists present. Have you all learned the Buddhist incantation of 9 syllables? You're not allowed to cultivate for a year. Did you see the concentric balls I sent back? Each of you can carve 5 of them. You can continue to cultivate when you finish. Chapter 12:28. The group of old Taoists did not say a word. They all bowed silently, feeling very happy in their hearts. They knew that this was Ancestor Ling Su's punishment for them, but at the same time, it was also Ancestor Ling Su's guidance to them. Didn't they see that the ancestor had already carved 2 concentric spheres and sent them back? Even the ancestor and Wang Sheng were carving these things. What did this mean? Even if it was just tempering one's temperament, it was also extremely beneficial to one's cultivation. As for not allowing them to cultivate, there was definitely another meaning. At this time, everyone was secretly happy. Did they really think that the ancestor was tricking them? Whoever thought so was the number 1 fool in the heaven category. You. Wang Sheng didn't say anything until the old Taoist announced the punishments. Then he reached out and pointed at 4 flying demonic beasts, each one of them being the strongest. After pointing, Wang Sheng raised his finger and pointed at the sky. Then he drew a circle in the air. Under the incredulous gazes of the old beastmasters and the astonished gazes of the old Taoists, the 4 flying mounts that Wang Sheng had pointed out seemed to understand human speech. They stood up and started flapping their wings. After a few flaps, the 4 flying mounts slowly flew into the air and began to circle around the courtyard where the flying mounts were domesticated. How is this possible? The few old beast tamers looked as if they had seen a ghost. How is this possible? The flying mounts actually took the initiative to fly without their command. An old beast tamer seemed to be in disbelief and began to make strange sounds at one of the flying mounts. That flying mount was under his control, and these sounds were calling for the flying beast to land. According to normal habits, when he called out like this, the flying beast near him would definitely land beside him without hesitation. However, today, for some reason, his flying mount did not listen to his command at all. The expressions of the other old beast tamers changed when they saw this. Immediately, 3 of them came out and also made strange sounds of the sky. However, no matter how much they shouted, the 4 beasts still circled the courtyard as if they did not hear them. When learning, be flexible. Don't be rigid and dogmatic. Old Taoist Ling Su once again admonished the old Taoist in the courtyard, then whistled. The 2 circling flying mounts immediately broke away from the group, slowly lowering their altitude and flying down. Without waiting for the 2 flying mounts to land, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had already taken to the skies. When the flying mounts flew over their heads, each of them jumped onto one. Immediately afterwards, the 2 flying mounts took to the skies and flew towards the southeast. The other 2 mounts that were originally circling also followed Wang Sheng and the old Taoist mounts without saying a word. After a while, they disappeared from everyone's sight. The group of old beast tamers was dumbfounded. The flying beasts that they had raised since they were young did not listen to their commands at all. In front of Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su, 2 people that they had only met once, they obediently took off after being pointed at, and obediently came down to pick up people after a whistle. They completely ignored the orders of their original owners. How is this possible? The 9 secret words of Buddhist incantation passed down by Elder Wang are extremely profound. The Grand Abbey Dean smiled indifferently and said, "You guys still haven't truly mastered it." How could the old Taoist in the courtyard not understand? They had all learned the 9 symbolic words before. Among them, the wholeness formula and the formation formula had similar effects. However, they had not used the 9 symbolic words in this technique. They could not help but feel ashamed. Seeing the 4 flying beasts fly away, another 3 or 4 beasts began to cry out one after another. It seemed like there was going to be a little chaos. The Grand Abbey Dean turned his head to look and suddenly laughed. "Be good, don't cry out." The 3 or 4 beasts that seemed to be a little flustered suddenly seemed to have found their backbone. They immediately stopped making a sound and quietly maintained their resting posture. Then, The Grand Abbey Dean turned to the Taoist priests and ordered, "Don't just stand there. The ancestor has ordered you to be punished. Hurry up and go." The Taoist priests felt as if they had just woken up from a dream. No wonder the Grand Abbey Dean did not object to the ancestor's actions from the beginning. It turned out that the Grand Abbey Dean already knew what the ancestor could do. The Grand Abbey Dean himself could also do the same. It was just that they were not flexible enough in their learning. They deserved to be punished. Remember, the ancestor doesn't allow you to cultivate. The Grand Abbey Dean's voice was heard again. Don't ask why. There must be benefits. Just do as the ancestor says. Everyone bowed in agreement and watched as the Grand Abbey Dean left. After a while, a group of Taoist priests came in. Everyone knew that they were here to replace them. They were not annoyed. What they saw today was a great inspiration for them. One by one, they lined up in a row excitedly and pondered on how to carve the concentric spheres. The group of barbarian old beast tamers were all in a daze. They had not reacted until now. Previously, they thought that it would not be easy for the people of the Laojun Temple to control these flying mounts. Even if they cooperated, they would still be needed in the future. These old men were still thinking of finding a suitable time to manipulate them and fight for better conditions. However, when they saw that the old Taoist Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean could make these flying mounts as obedient as pugs with just a few words, they no longer had any hopes of getting lucky. They only felt lucky that they did not have any bad intentions and had performed well during this period of time. Otherwise, they would have been useless a long time ago. After understanding this, these old beast tamers did not dare to be arrogant anymore. They obediently cooperated with the new Taoist priests and taught them everything they knew about flying demonic beasts. They answered every question and did not dare to hide anything. Old Taoist, some of the old disciples of the Laojun Temple, are not flexible enough. Wang Sheng said to the old Taoist Ling Su, who was not far away from him, "It's good to be flexible and honest." The old Taoist was open-minded and said to Wang Sheng, "Isn't the world supposed to be like this? If everyone is like you, what's the point of the world?" "That's true." Wang Sheng gave the old Taoist a thumbs up. "However, old Taoist, we have to change our route and go to the Kingdom of Song first, giving your concentric spheres to your duchess." The old Taoist exposed Wang Sheng's intention and smiled. "Let's go. You won't give up if you don't go." As they spoke, the 4 flying demonic beasts changed their direction and flew towards the northeast. That was the correct direction to the Kingdom of Song. "By the way, you aren't planning to jump into the Kingdom of Song directly, are you?" The old Taoist asked Wang Sheng on the way. "Aren't you afraid that they will misunderstand and repeat what happened in the Kingdom of Song?" Chapter 1229. It was obvious that the various countries had strengthened the security of their palaces after the incident in Dai State. It was the same in Song State. At least, it was very obvious when Wang Sheng and the old Taoist looked at it from the sky. Right now, the flying Yao beasts that the two of them were controlling were flying at an altitude of 5,000 meters. Wang Sheng could see everything through his scope, but the people below could only see a few black dots in the sky. They could not see anything else. There was no sound. It was quite a good concealment. This was the strength of the flying demonic beasts. If they didn't descend, others wouldn't be able to find them. There were no experts who could use their auras to detect something more than 5 kilometers away. This was the reason why the various countries were suppressed by the land of tranquility. "Old Taoist, help me make some noise at night." Wang Sheng knew that he couldn't enter the Song Kingdom's palace openly during the day, so he could only choose to do it at night. Song Yin definitely didn't want others to know about the intimate relationship between Wang Sheng and her. Therefore, Wang Sheng wouldn't take the initiative to expose it. In that case, he could only sneak in. Old Taoist Ling Su didn't have any objections to this. It wasn't a big problem for him. At around 11 o'clock at night, a fire suddenly lit up in a corner of the Song Kingdom's palace, which had been quiet for a long time. The palace guards were immediately alerted, and countless people rushed in that direction. Of course, after being alerted, more people immediately gathered around Song Honda and Song Yin to protect them. In the Song Kingdom's palace, no one was more important than the two of them. In just a short while, the two of them had moved from their respective sleeping quarters to a safer place. After another half an hour, the alarm was lifted. It was a kitchen. For some reason, it caught fire and was quickly extinguished. Apart from the commotion, there were no casualties. Only half of the kitchen was destroyed. After half an hour of commotion, the palace finally quieted down again. All the guards returned to their original positions and went back to their respective duties. Song Hongda and Song Yin also returned to their respective sleeping quarters. Seriously, we didn't even know what happened. Why did we disturb the young mistress? Outside the sleeping quarters, a group of female guards in charge of protecting Song Yin watched the surroundings vigilantly as they escorted Song Yin back to her sleeping quarters. One of the guards kept grumbling. "There's no harm in being careful." Song Yin comforted the guard with a smile. These female guards were Song Yin's absolute trust. Even when Wang Sheng and Song Yin were having a private rendezvous in the capital, they were the ones in charge of guarding the surroundings. They knew many of Song Yin's secrets. Opening the door of the bedchamber, they did not sense any unfamiliar aura. Feeling assured, the women escorted Song Yin back to the bedchamber. One of the guards tidied up Song Yin's bed with great familiarity and was about to help her rest. However, at this moment, Song Yin suddenly stared in a certain direction with an indescribable expression on her face. It was as if he wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. The guards were shocked, thinking that Song Yin had been alarmed by something. One of them was smart enough to follow Song Yin's gaze and looked in that direction. He didn't see anything unusual. Just as he was about to turn around and ask, he suddenly realized something and turned his head away. In that direction, on an embroidery table leaning against the wall, there was a red ball. The female guard clearly remembered that when they left, there was nothing on the table. When did a red ball appear? Who sent it in? Don't make a sound. Song Yin seemed to have controlled her emotions and ordered the guard softly. Everyone didn't know what was going on, but they nodded in unison. No one made a sound and just looked at Song Yin. However, Song Yin didn't look at them. She only looked at the red ball with deep affection. "Do you like it?" A man's voice that made the women's souls almost leave their bodies came from behind Song Yin. The female guards were so frightened that they immediately turned around and drew their weapons and rushed over. Fortunately, they still remembered Song Yin's order and didn't make a sound. No one knew when Wang Sheng had appeared there. Under the candlelight in the bedchamber, he was very eye-catching. The moment they saw Wang Sheng, the female guards immediately understood why Song Yin had asked them to keep quiet. They were all personal guards who had followed Song Yin to the capital, so they naturally knew the relationship between Song Yin and Wang Sheng. Of course, they also instantly understood that the commotion just now was not an accident. It was intentional by Wang Sheng. "Greetings, master." The female guards exchanged glances with each other before bowing and greeting Wang Sheng in unison. Then, with smiles on their faces, they left the chamber and closed the door behind them. Wang Sheng took a few steps forward and reached out to pull the concentric ball into his arms. He lowered his head and asked gently, "Do you like it?" Song Yin hadn't turned her head since the beginning. Hearing the voice that she had been thinking about day and night, leaning into the warm embrace, and smelling the familiar scent, Song Yin's body almost instantly softened. If it wasn't for Wang Sheng holding her, she might have fallen to the ground. But how could Wang Sheng let Song Yin fall to the ground? He bent over, grabbed Song Yin's legs, and lifted her up. He walked to the bedside and gently put her down. Before Wang Sheng could straighten up, Song Yin tugged at Wang Sheng's slender hands, and he couldn't help but lean down again. Song Yin's arms wrapped around Wang Sheng's neck, and her beautiful red lips covered Wang Sheng's. There were no outsiders here, so Wang Sheng and Song Yin immediately became husband and wife. Song Yin was very happy today, but strangely, she didn't put on the face of a queen in her own palace. Instead, she was very gentle and cooperated with Wang Sheng. It was as if Wang Sheng was the master of the kingdom of Song, and Song Yin was Wang Sheng's wife. After making love, Song Yin leaned into Wang Sheng's arms and asked Wang Sheng why he came. Giving the concentric balls was definitely only one of them. Otherwise, Wang Sheng wouldn't have left the capital so easily. Something must have happened in the capital that made Wang Sheng leave. No, I just wanted to give you the concentric balls. Wang Sheng smiled and turned to kiss Song Yan's forehead. I made a few concentric balls in a row, and I'm a little tired. I didn't want to stay in the capital and be annoyed by people, so I came out for a walk. You know how many people want the complete map? You don't know how many people come to my door every day. Initially, Song Yin did not believe that Wang Sheng had only come out to deliver the concentric balls. However, after hearing what Wang Sheng said, she believed him. Not to mention others, even Song Yin wanted to ask Wang Sheng for the map. It was just that she couldn't bring herself to do it. Now that Wang Sheng had put it that way, Song Yin gave up on the idea of opening her mouth. Don't rush. Get ready. Wang Sheng could feel the changes in Song Yin's body. He reminded her softly, the secret of the land of despair isn't that simple. Chapter 1230. After Wang Sheng's repeated reminders, Song Yin finally gave up on the idea of getting the map from Wang Sheng and rushing into the lands of despair. The two of them stayed up all night in Song Yan's bedchamber. This time, Wang Sheng's treatment was greatly improved. Not only did he get to eat, but he also got to eat delicacies. There were many dishes, all of which were Wang Shengping's favorites. Mayor must have talked to Song Yin about this a lot. Not only did Xiao Chun eat in the middle of the night, but Song Yin also carefully admired the peony blossoms with one heart ghost crafting ball that belonged to her. She loved it so much that she spun it around for more than half an hour. In the end, she carefully put it away. She had no intention of leaving it outside. Wang Sheng did not linger. In the morning, Wang Sheng left. Song Yin did not ask him to stay. She also knew that she could not keep Wang Sheng in the Song Nation's palace. Fortunately, Song Yin saw him off when he left. Aside from Song Yan's personal female guards, no one else knew that Wang Sheng had entered the palace. He easily disguised himself as a palace guard and followed Song Yin out of the Song Nation's palace. Wang Sheng did not see Song Hongda. In the past few days, Song Yin had been chatting with Song Hongda. It seemed that Song Hongda was still very stubborn. Even though he regretted it, he did not admit defeat. It would not be pleasant for the two of them to meet, so they might as well not meet. In the mountains outside the Song Nation's capital, Wang Sheng met up with old Taoist Ling Su. They did not care if anyone was tailing them. The two of them rode on 4 flying demonic beasts and soared into the sky, heading straight for the land of despair. Although the treasure map that Zhu Xingxing had left behind had been burned to ashes along with Zhu Xiaodong, Wang Sheng had remembered all the details as long as he had seen it. There was no need for him to look at it a second time. The series of protruding islands on the map did not start from the coastline closest to the island where the treasure was hidden. Instead, it started from a mountain southeast of the land of despair. Starting from that mountain, they took a big detour, using a total of 8 islands as a springboard. The 9th island was where the treasure was. The scale on the map was inaccurate, so Wang Sheng did not know the exact distance. But according to the careful flying distance between the 2 islands, it would probably take more than 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers to fly all the way to the island. They flew all the way from Song Country to Shanyu Country. They rested a few times on the way. They didn't encounter any danger or fight along the way. They didn't encounter any enemies. When they landed, they chose a place where there were no powerful demonic beasts. 3 days later, they arrived at the mountain by the seaside of Shanyu Country. The mountain was easy to recognize because Zhu Xingxing's drawing had a very obvious cliff that looked like an eagle's head. While in the air, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist saw the cliff from dozens of miles away. In an instant, they determined the starting point. After resting for a night on the mountain, the two of them rode on 4 flying demonic beasts and set off early in the morning. The reason why each of them brought an extra flying mount was that they could have a replacement flying mount in case of any accidents along the way. If an accident happened on the sea, without this insurance, the only outcome would be falling into the sea and becoming food for the sea monsters. It was the old Taoist's first time seeing the sea. He looked very fresh and was looking forward to the rest of the journey. Wang Sheng looked at the old Taoist and smiled. He didn't say anything. When the old Taoist saw the scenery of the vast sea with nothing but water, it wouldn't be so fresh. The two of them were purely exploring. They weren't greedy for the treasure. They just treated it as a treasure hunting game. So they weren't in a hurry and just enjoyed the scenery along the way. When they were on the back of the heavy snow, the two of them were trembling with fear. They were afraid of being thrown off by the heavy snow. How could they enjoy the scenery from the sky? It was the old Taoist's first day at sea. Wang Xing didn't point it out. He just controlled the direction to look for the island. It couldn't be helped. The scale on Zhu Xingxing's treasure map was wrong. Naturally, the direction couldn't be very accurate. It could only be roughly south-southeast or east-northeast. A slight error could lead to 1,000 miles of error. A bump on the treasure map represented an island. But on the sea, it could be dozens of miles or even hundreds of miles in radius. They had to search carefully. It was true. When Wang Sheng felt that they should have flown more than 400 miles, he began to let the flying demonic beast fly in circles, like a fighter jet flying in a spiral pattern. After a full hour, Wang Sheng finally saw the island. He controlled the flying demonic beast to fly over. The island wasn't big. It was only a few miles in radius. However, there was nothing on it except for some rocks. From time to time, the waves would create splashes. It was very boring. Not to mention powerful demonic beasts, there was basically no other living thing on the island except for some marine creatures in the water along the coast. There was no fresh water and no soil. These two were enough to sentence most animals and plants to death. On the first day, they didn't see any ferocious sea demons. The two of them flew more cautiously and didn't dare to lower their altitude. After all, the legendary 200 feet long tentacles sounded very scary. Therefore, they maintained a height of at least 1,000 meters and only used their eyes to search. It was also the first time that the old Taoist saw the scene of the vast sea and the sky merging into one. He was really shocked. This was completely different from the land. There were no ups and downs, no mountains and rivers. There was only a vast sea, empty and desolate. However, there was an unparalleled vitality under the water. The contradictory feeling made the old Taoist not sleep much that night. He sat on a tall rock near the sea and released his aura to feel the vitality of the sea. He sat there for most of the night. The next day, as they continued to fly in the direction indicated on the map, the two of them saw sea creatures that could be called demonic beasts for the first time. This time, they flew at a lower altitude, about 400 meters or so. At this height, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist could guarantee that if there was any movement on the sea, they would be able to quickly pull the flying demonic beast up. This height was also more convenient for observing the creatures in the sea. From the back of the flying demonic beast, the old Taoist could clearly see a huge fish's back under the sea. The fish's back hidden under the water was more than 50 meters long. It was almost 20 to 30 feet long. Even at a height of 400 meters, the old Taoist could sense the legendary aura emitted from the huge fish. However, this legendary fish didn't stay active for long in front of the two of them. Suddenly, the sea surface rolled and an even more powerful aura burst out, chasing after the super demonic beast in the land of 1,000 devastations. Then, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist saw a huge fish almost twice the size of the huge fish. It suddenly bit the huge fish from under the water. After swinging its huge tail, it plunged straight into the sea. Chapter 1231. This scene stunned the old Taoist, who was at sea for the first time. Although with his own cultivation level, he wouldn't look at a master of the legendary realm, but a big fish of the legendary realm was easily killed, which was beyond his expectations. Don't be surprised, this kind of thing happens a lot. Wang Sheng shouted at the old Taoist from afar. This is the sea, not land. The old Taoist's surprise did not last long, because they soon saw a huge school of fish. At first, the old Taoist thought that it was a huge fish. From the air, it occupied a radius of dozens of miles. At first, he was really shocked. Fortunately, he did not feel a strong aura, so he was a little relieved. Wang Sheng also shouted to the old Taoist that it was not a fish, but a huge fish group composed of tens of millions of small fish. In fact, there was no need for Wang Sheng to remind him. The old Taoist could see it after a while. The edges of the black shadow were changing, so it was obviously not a fish. There were a lot more flying beasts around, and each of them seemed to be no smaller than the one Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su were riding. In terms of cultivation, most of them were in the 6th or 7th stage. A few were in the 8th stage, and there were even many in the legendary realm. Normally, with so many birds, perhaps they would still have territorial awareness and fight with each other. But now, their attention was not on Wang Sheng and the old Taoist, nor was it on the 4 flying demonic beasts. It was all on a huge school of fish. Old Taoist, you're lucky. Wang Sheng controlled the flying beast to fly close to the old Taoist, and then control the other 2 to come closer too. They flew slightly to the edge of the area so that they would not hinder the seabirds in the middle from eating. We're in time for the ferocious beasts gathering in the sea. The situation at the moment, just as Wang Sheng said, had really turned into a gathering. Thousands of large and small seabirds, including demonic beasts and non-demonic beasts, crazily rushed into the sea. Every time it swooped down, it would grab 1 or 2 small fish that were 3 feet long and fly out. Then, it would fly to an unknown corner and gorge itself on them. The old Taoist had never thought that the 3-foot-long fish was just a small fish, but now that he saw this scene, he really believed it. The seawater was transparent and clear, and one could see through it to the bottom. Hundreds of ferocious fishes, each several meters long, were swimming in and out of the schools of small fishes, swallowing dozens of small fishes in a single bite. At this moment, the surface of the sea seemed to be boiling. Fishes of all sizes kept jumping out of the water and falling back. Seabirds kept burrowing into the sea from the sky or flying out of the water. It was very lively. The old Taoist stared at the scene unblinkingly from the back of the flying demonic beast. He had never seen such a shocking scene before. Even when the man-eating ants had swept through the 1,000 despair grounds, there had never been such a scene. It was simply breathtaking. Looking at the old Taoist's careful observation, Wang Sheng came up with a crazy idea. He shouted at the old Taoist, "Old Taoist, do you want to go down and take a look? Go down." The old Taoist was stunned and looked at Wang Sheng in confusion. Did Wang Sheng's words mean what he understood them to be? Wang Sheng just nodded slowly, indicating that the old Taoist's guess was correct. The old Taoist saw Wang Sheng's nod, and his face instantly turned red. Looking down at the tens of millions of 5- and 6-star demonic beasts, as well as the seabirds and big fishes, his heroic spirit rose, and he fiercely nodded at Wang Sheng. The 2 flying demonic beasts began to descend rapidly. At this moment, all the seabirds were hunting in the sea and didn't care about the 4 flying demonic beasts. When they descended to about 50 meters, Wang Sheng greeted the old Taoist and put on his protective goggles and mask. With a leap, he jumped off the flying demonic beast and dived into the sea. The old Taoist followed closely behind Wang Sheng and did the same. Plop, plop. 2 sounds of entering the water could be heard. 2 figures directly plunged from the surface of the sea to about 10 meters underwater. The place where the 2 of them jumped was near the edge of the school of fishes. This place was relatively quiet, and there weren't many seabirds and fishes. They could see more clearly underwater. The moment they entered the water, the old Taoist saw that the thickness of this huge school of fishes exceeded his visibility in the water. Looking over, all the way to the end of his line of sight were the same fishes. Even if he couldn't see the fishes, the dense aura made old Taoist Ling Su realize that the thickness of this school of fish was probably more than a few li. This was no longer tens of millions of fishes, but hundreds of millions and billions of fishes. A 3-foot-long 5-star fish should be worth at least a few thousand gold coins, right? Just this school of fishes alone was worth more than hundreds of billions of gold coins, even to the level of trillions. The sea and the land were indeed very different. If there was such a group of terrifying 5-degree realm demonic beasts on the land, they would definitely sweep the world. Not to mention the 5-degree realm. Even a first-degree realm man-eating ant could run amok in the ground of thousand despair in large numbers. How many 8th-degree legend realm demonic beasts would run away when they heard of it? An underwater propeller had already appeared in Wang Sheng's hand. He came over and brought the old Taoist with him. Each of them had a tube in their mouths, and they went straight into the school of fishes. The old Taoist was shocked, but when he saw that Wang Sheng didn't show any signs of panic, he calmed down, relaxed his body, and observed carefully. From this angle, the scene of the seabirds hunting for food was extremely clear. The route from entering the water to catching the fish was clear. The precise movements of those seabirds in the water to catch the fish even gave the old Taoist countless inspirations. If some of the attacking movements could be more refined, perhaps they could achieve the same effect. In just a moment, the old Taoist understood the reason why Wang Sheng asked him to come down. There was nothing else in his heart. There was no fear, no curiosity, only a concentrated observation and comprehension. In addition to the seabirds, there were also countless huge fishes, each of which had an aura of at least the legendary realm. However, these huge and ferocious fishes didn't care about Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su in the school of fishes. In their eyes, there was only such a huge amount of food. They ferociously swam through the school of fishes, cutting them apart, and then devoured them in a frenzy. Wang Sheng had already seen many huge fishes that were similar to sharks on Earth, and also some that looked like dolphins. Of course, most of them were unfamiliar and had never seen before. No one cared about the two insignificant little shrimps like Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. In front of such a huge and delicious school of fishes, their existence was like a stone in the midst of the food. They couldn't wait to avoid them, so they couldn't care less about finding trouble with them. At this moment, both Wang Sheng and the old Taoist sensed several extremely terrifying auras coming from below. Then, the figures of several super demonic beasts that were more than 100 meters long appeared in their field of vision. Chapter 1232. The old Taoist and Wang Sheng had seen such huge fish before. Just yesterday, a super huge fish had swallowed another huge fish. However, at that time, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were watching from a few hundred meters up in the sky. Although the huge fish was huge, it was not that exaggerated when seen from afar. But now, the two of them were in a shoal of fish. They were no more than 50 meters away from those huge figures. The huge pressure brought by the super huge fish was directly acting on the two of them. Fortunately, both of their cultivations were not bad. They could withstand and even ignore this level of aura attack. However, the small fish in the shoal could not withstand it. Just the aura suppression alone made the small fish in the area not dare to move. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist watched as the small fish, who seemed to have lost their ability to move, were swallowed by the huge mouth from the bottom to the top. When a super huge fish jumped out of the water, it happened to pass in front of Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. Be it Wang Sheng or the old Taoist, they both did the same action. They stretched out their hands and touched the body of the huge fish. Feeling the slippery surface of the huge fish, an indescribable feeling arose in their hearts. With just a single bite from the bottom to the top, a sizable gap was created in the huge school of fish. However, there were too many fish in the shoal. Once the huge fish fell back into the sea and dived to the bottom of the sea again, the gap was filled by countless small fish. Looking at the countless 5th-degree realm fishes lining up neatly and rushing towards the two of them, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist did not move an inch in the sea. This was not because the old Taoist was calm, but because Wang Sheng was holding him and not moving. Countless small fish were about to rush in front of Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. Suddenly, their bodies moved flexibly and bypassed the two of them. They completely ignored the two of them, as if they were just two stones in the sea. When Wang Sheng and the old Taoist started the underwater thruster, they shuttled through the shoal of fish. This was exactly the scene which made the old Taoist click his tongue in wonder. As they dived deeper, the two of them saw many strange marine animals. Seabirds and big fish were not the only ones who caught the fish. There were also many strange things. There were crabs, shrimps, and even huge shells. There was a fish in a shell, and the fish was still struggling, but it couldn't break free. There were also huge sea turtles with a diameter of several feet that could eat a fish. There were also some transparent jellyfish wrapped around a fish. They were quietly flapping their bodies, waiting for the fish to digest and absorb it. After staying underwater for more than half an hour, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist once again returned to the surface of the sea. After a few whistles, a flying demon beast swept across the surface of the sea. Its claws grabbed Wang Sheng and the old Taoist, and it flew into the air. When it flew above another flying demon beast, its claws loosened and the two of them fell into the seats on the back of that flying demon beast. The four flying demon beasts did not stay any longer. They soared into the sky and quickly flew away from where the shoal of fish was. Open your eyes. The old Taoist did not care that his body was drenched. He laid on the spacious seat on the back of the flying demon beast and sighed at the sky. His mind was still recalling everything that he had seen in the water. It must have been fun. Wang Sheng was also lying on the side in a very indecent manner. Although Wang Sheng was very calm when they were underwater, after leaving that area, Wang Sheng also felt a little scared. No matter who it was, when faced with billions of fifth-degree realm fishes rushing towards them in groups, their hearts would be in turmoil. Moreover, it was not just a shoal of fifth-degree realm fishes. There were also super huge fishes. They could touch their scales intimately at a close distance. If they were not careful, the other party just needed to open their mouths in their direction, and the two of them would be doomed. It's really fun. The old Taoist sighed. Although he was a 12th degree realm expert, and his cultivation might be stronger than the super huge fishes, but when he personally touched a super huge fish, the old Taoist also felt waves of nervousness and excitement. Until now, his expression was that his legs were a little weak. Don't think that the old Taoist realm was higher than the super huge fishes. If they really fought in the sea, it was still unknown who would win. The biggest possibility was that the huge fishes might be safe and sound, and the old Taoist and Wang Sheng would die together and become nourishment for the huge fishes. When you go crazy, you're crazier than me, the old Taoist. The old Taoist panted and evaluated Wang Sheng. How do you know that it's okay to jump down? There's so many delicious things in the sea. Who would pay attention to something we've never seen before and don't know if it can be eaten? Wang Sheng laid on the seat and pointed a middle finger at the old Taoist. Then he explained, when you're extremely hungry and see a lot of delicious food, will you still care about 2 ants near the dining table? When I'm really hungry, I probably can't even see beautiful women, let alone 2 ants. The old Taoist immediately understood what Wang Sheng meant. In front of those hunters, the two of them were actually just 2 ants. The reason seemed very simple. However, the only person who could really understand this and dare to jump in with him for a closer look was probably Wang Sheng. The old Taoist had to admit that even he felt a little nervous at that time. This had nothing to do with cultivation. It was just a matter of courage. The world is so big. There are indeed all kinds of strange things in this world. The old Taoist sighed emotionally. The Grand Abbey Dean should really bring those big and small cow noses who only know how to chant scriptures here to take a look and broaden their horizons. There will be a chance. Wang Sheng replied with a smile. Don't we already have more than a dozen flying demonic beasts? Take your time. The old Taoist did not say much, but he had a thoughtful look on his face. Wang Sheng knew that the old Taoist must have had some new enlightenment. He did not disturb him. He quietly urged the flying demonic beasts to find the location of the second island. The second island was very big. It was at least more than 20 miles in radius. There were forests and a small lake on the island. There were also many traces of animals on the island. However, Such a small island could not breed powerful demonic beasts. In the face of the 9 syllables of Wang Sheng and the old Taoist, not many animals could resist it. The two of them quickly cleared an open space by the lake. The lake was fresh water, so they could have a good rest today. There was a large, shallow sea around the island. Wang Sheng knew that the old Taoist was very interested in the sea. He simply pulled the old Taoist along and dived into the shallow sea around the island to observe it. On this island, the old Taoist and Wang Sheng stayed for a full 3 days. Wang Sheng took the old Taoist to see the bottom of the sea in all directions. Just as Wang Sheng had expected, there wouldn't be any powerful sea demons in the shallow waters. Even if there were some big carnivorous fish, the moment the old Taoist priest released his aura slightly, those fellows who were far away would flee. They didn't dare come close to interfere with Wang Sheng and the old Taoist priest's underwater world. I have understood something again. After watching for a few days when they were resting by the lake, the old Taoist suddenly said to Wang Sheng, "The mind of meditation method to observe emptiness should be improved again." Chapter 1233. Natural Taoism? Wang Sheng laughed and asked, "Yes, it's natural Taoism." The old Taoist nodded fiercely and said, "If I hadn't seen the magnificent waves in the sea and the peace and tranquility at the bottom of the shallow sea, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out. It's better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books," Wang Sheng added with a smile. "You couldn't be more right." The old Taoist still nodded fiercely and said, "When I go back, I'll ask the Grand Abbey Dean to drive out those who have cultivated to a certain level and let them travel 10,000 miles. The old Taoist's feelings were not without reason. In the deep sea, he saw the fierce survival of the fittest. But in the shallow sea, he saw all kinds of unimaginable symbiosis and peaceful coexistence. Corals, anemones, and all kinds of small fish formed a mutually beneficial small circle, living together and protecting each other. In the same sea, there were cruel killings, but there were also such warm symbiosis. Nature was indeed magical. Wang Sheng was very happy. The more the old Taoist understood, the more benefits it would bring to Mei-er, and the happier Wang Sheng was. After wandering around the island for a few days, the two set foot on the third treasure hunting island again. The journey was uneventful, and they didn't see any dangerous things. It was the same on the fourth island. However, the two of them discovered something different around the fourth island. In fact, the fourth island itself was a volcanic island. It was formed by volcanic eruptions, and there were craters, which were very easy to recognize. The volcano on the island was lifeless, and it had not erupted for thousands of years. The volcanic rocks on the island had long condensed and weathered, and many of them had become soil. However, there was still no fresh water, so there were no plants. There were some animals, and some seal-like creatures were lazily basking in the sun on the island. The surprise was at the bottom of the sea near the shore. They dived down from the shore, and after more than 200 meters away from the shore, the depth of the bottom suddenly became a few hundred meters. When the two of them dove down, they happened to see a crack that was gushing out magma. The two of them saw that the underwater volcano that was erupting was surrounded by water vapor. It was a steam bubble formed when the hot magma suddenly came into contact with the cold seawater. Under the huge water pressure, the steam bubble was very small, but when it rose to a certain point, it did not become an atmospheric bubble. Instead, it was quickly cooled by the seawater and became seawater again. From the surface of the sea, there didn't seem to be anything unusual. The water temperature at the bottom of the sea was at least 40 degrees Celsius, and both of them felt a little hot. Under such circumstances, the old Taoists took it for granted that there were no living creatures around. But on the contrary, the biosphere here seemed to be more vibrant than anywhere else. Wang Sheng did not explain. The old Taoists found it very strange, but also reasonable. The marine creatures in this area had an astonishing amount of spiritual energy. They were obviously just 4th or 5th stage realm sea demons, but when they tasted a few of them, the spiritual energy contained in their bodies was comparable to that of 7th or 8th stage realm demonic beasts. It was truly a boundless world with all sorts of wonders. However, it was obvious that the sulfur content of the seafood here was relatively high. Wang Sheng tasted the abnormality of the seafood as soon as it entered his mouth. He reminded the old Taoist to pay attention to using the army formula to regulate the body's detoxification and not to be indifferent. After seeing the wonders of the underwater volcano, the two of them continued on their journey. The vast sea, as far as the eye could see, there was nothing but seawater. The blue seawater stretched as far as the eye could see, and there was nothing else in the field of vision other than the sea. When flying, the old Taoist could not even accurately determine the direction, and everything depended on Wang Sheng's command. After flying for so many days in a row, looking at the same scenery of the sea every day, it was indeed a little annoying. The two of them maintained a height of 400 meters and flew normally. However, the two of them no longer had the excitement and novelty of watching the sea when they first went out to sea. Suddenly, the old Taoist shouted, "Hurry up and ascend." His voice already had the power of the 9 syllables, and he controlled the 4 flying beasts to ascend rapidly. Wang Sheng was shocked, but when he looked down, the sea was calm, and he did not find anything, nor did he find any unusual aura. As Wang Sheng was feeling shocked, the surface of the sea abruptly roiled, and a massive tentacle shot out from the surface of the sea like a python. It swept toward the 4 flying Yao beasts in the sky. The speed of the tentacle was so fast that the 4 flying beasts could not avoid the attack range of the huge tentacle. Wang Sheng could even see the huge and terrifying suckers on the tentacle that were even bigger than the flying beasts. Seeing that one of the flying beasts was about to be wrapped up by the tentacle, at the critical moment, Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow had already shot out with a bang. The distance was close, and the target was so big, the heavy sniper crossbow did not have any deviation. With a chi sound, it shot into the tentacle, and then there was a huge explosion with a bang. The tentacle in the air suddenly paused, as if it suddenly fell down uncontrollably. Taking advantage of this, the 4 flying beasts desperately flapped their wings, desperately trying to fly higher. A godlike aura suddenly appeared, directly enveloping a radius of tens of miles. The terrifying aura directly caused the 2 flying beasts that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were riding to suddenly stop flapping their wings. After hovering in the air for a few seconds, they suddenly fell down. "Come back," Wang Sheng shouted, and suddenly released the 6-word formula, trying to influence the 2 flying mounts that were suppressed by the terrifying aura. It was fine for them, as Wang Sheng and the old Taoist could influence them at close range. Even so, the 2 beasts still stopped flapping their wings for 2 to 3 seconds. Another heavy sniper crossbow fiercely shot downwards. It didn't care what the target was, it just kept shooting downwards. Looking at the tentacle, it seemed to be more than 100 or 200 feet long. One could imagine how big the body below was. Wang Sheng did not have to worry about missing when he shot out an arrow. Boom! There was another small explosion under the sea. Wang Sheng did not dare to be negligent, and the heavy sniper crossbow continuously shot down. After a few times, the other party's aura was completely focused on Wang Sheng. At this time, the 2 flying beasts that almost fell into the sea finally escaped from death. They were only a few dozen meters away from falling into the sea. At this time, when Wang Sheng released the 9-word formula again, the 2 beasts frantically flew upwards, as if they were escaping for their lives. Finally, with Wang Sheng's help, they escaped from another tentacle that extended out and flew to an altitude of 1,000 meters. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist also controlled their mounts to fly to an altitude of 1,000 meters, but the terrifying aura was still locked onto Wang Sheng. When looking down, even at a distance of 1,000 meters, Wang Sheng could vaguely see 2 big eyes at least 100 meters wide staring at him from the bottom of the sea. Chapter 1234. Fly up. What else could Wang Sheng do? What else could he do besides controlling the flying beast to fly higher? No matter what, he had to get out of the attack range of the terrifying demonic beast first. Only Wang Sheng, an old Taoistling, Su could withstand the pressure of that terrifying aura. If it had been someone else, the best outcome would have been a fall to their death when they fell into the sea. That way, they wouldn't have to bear the consequences of being devoured by the gigantic sea monster. This time, the two of them tried their best to fly higher until they reached an altitude of 5,000 meters. Only then did they fly further away. Even now, Wang Sheng still had lingering fears about the pressure brought by those two eyes. After flying for a few hours, they found the next island. Wang Sheng flew around the island worriedly. When he saw that the island was surrounded by shallow waters, he felt reassured and landed on the island. Old Taoist, what realm is that thing at? Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su, who had also landed not far away. Its aura was too terrifying. It was much stronger than the super demonic beasts in the core area of the land of 1,000 devastations. It's half a realm stronger than me. The old Taoist didn't look too good either, but his voice was steady when he answered. They had long guessed that there would be terrifying sea monsters in the sea, and they also knew that there would be ferocious sea monsters that were stronger than the old Taoist. However, when they actually encountered one, they still felt like they had new lease on life. After landing, the four demonic beasts gathered together obediently. It was as if huddling together could dispel the fear in their hearts. This time, it wasn't just Wang Sheng and the old Taoist who were frightened. The four flying mounts were also frightened. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were not afraid of the sea monsters, but they were afraid of the vast sea. If they encountered such a powerful sea monster, they wouldn't even have a chance to fight back. With such a huge body, even if Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow could kill a legendary realm expert, it would at most cause him some pain. Wanting to kill, it was simply an extravagant hope. Not to mention 1 or 2 arrows. Even if all the heavy arrows Wang Sheng had brought with him were shot, it would only cause a flesh wound and would not harm the sea demon's foundation. No matter how powerful the heavy sniper crossbow was, it could shoot through the head of a legendary expert. However, when it shot into the tentacles of the siren, it would only be able to penetrate 3 to 4 meters deep before it would be blocked by the strong body and spiritual energy. With a thickness of 3 to 4 meters, it probably wouldn't even be able to pierce through the sea demon's skin. It was the same for the old Taoist. No matter how powerful the monsters on land were, they could still put up a fight. In the ocean, unless the old Taoist could not breathe, they could just drag the old Taoist to the bottom of the sea and drown the old Taoist without even attacking. Can you hurt that thing? Lying on the ground and taking deep breaths, Wang Sheng was not afraid to show his fear in front of the old Taoist, so he asked the old Taoist. Bare-handed, it's difficult. The old Taoist shook his head. That thing was too big. The old Taoist's best means of attack were Tai Chi and the 9 words mantra, but these two were completely useless against that thing. If he punched such a huge tentacle, the spiritual energy attack could only penetrate a few meters or more. Was it meaningful to that thing? What if I use a weapon? Wang Sheng heard the meaning behind the old Taoist's words and immediately asked. With the sharpest sword, I might be able to cut off one of its tentacles. The old Taoist was not belittling himself. This was already a very optimistic estimate. All right, Wang Sheng shook his head. That thing has at least 8 tentacles, and they can regenerate. Cutting off one of them was meaningless. To that monster, it was not even a serious injury. No matter what, I have to bring a good sword with me when I go back. The old Taoist had now recovered a lot. He sat up and turned to the flying demon beasts. He began to use the 9 words mantra to appease the 4 flying mounts. Wang Sheng also joined in. The 6 words mantra was much more powerful than the old Taoists. In just a short while, the 4 flying mounts were lying there and slowly fell asleep. This was the result of Wang Sheng's control. There is nothing better than a good sleep to reduce fear. The old Taoist watched the flying demon beasts fall asleep. He slowly calmed down and asked Wang Sheng, "Didn't you say that thing would only be in the deep sea? There might be something that can rival it," and brought it to the surface. Wang Xing thought about the habit of the sperm whale on Earth to catch the giant squid and gave a similar answer. Something that can rival it. The old Taoist could not help but shiver. That thing was already enough to make the two of them run for their lives. If there was another demon beast that could rival it, how terrifying would it be? If you want to know, you have to go back and take a look. Wang Xing closed his eyes and pondered for a while. He said to the old Taoist Ling Su, maybe we just accidentally broke into their battlefield. At this point, Wang Xing's heart skipped a beat. He then turned to look at the old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist Ling Su's eyes lit up for a moment before returning to normal. Wang Xing understood that the old Taoist Ling Su must have been tempted. Forget it. Seeing that Wang Xing was looking at him, the old Taoist Ling Su slowly shook his head. Whether or not both sides will suffer, it's not a battle we can participate in. If two ants want to gain some benefits from a battle between two elephants, the only result will be being trampled into meat patties by the elephants. Imagining the two huge eyes that glowed with the light of death, Wang Xing shook his head and threw the trace of hope out of his mind. The old Taoist's words made sense. If the difference in strength was too great, they would not be sitting on top of the mountain to watch the tigers fight. They would be sending themselves to their deaths. No matter which side they were on, they would probably be happy to eat a cultivation expert like the old Taoist to nourish themselves during a break in the battle in order to increase their combat power. As for someone like Wang Xing, he was probably just an appetizer. On the other hand, the 4 flying demon beasts were so huge that they could at least eat some to fill their stomachs. They would not have to fight on an empty stomach. In any case, they were lucky to be able to see such terrifying super demon beasts. The old Taoist and Wang Xing specially rested on the island for a few days just to comprehend the terrifying aura. They wanted to know where they should go and which direction they should go. There was no such opportunity on land or in the land of thousand devastations. After completely getting rid of the terrifying aura of the super demon beasts from their minds, the two of them embarked on their journey of treasure hunting a few days later. Using a few islands as a springboard, they saw many creatures and demon beasts that were completely different from those on land. It was an eye-opener for them. The island with the hidden treasure should be up ahead. Wang Xing and the old Taoist Ling Su rode on their flying mounts and circled around in search of the island. They had used this trick several times before. As long as the general direction was right, they would be able to find the island in 1 or 2 hours at most. However, there seemed to be an accident this time. The two of them searched for a whole 3 hours, and even after a round of flying demon beasts, they still did not see the island. There was no island in this area at all. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.